All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm a host, Freeway, and I'm here with my co-host, Ken Chan, as well as two special guests. This is the first time that we actually have two guests on the podcast. We have Anthony Simpson and Chris Lynn, who have both been guests on the IMNerd podcast previously. So check those episodes out if you guys want. Their names should be in the descriptions of those. But we are going to be talking about
the whole United Nations on this episode.
We do. We have a bit of everything here. We got
how could you say this?
Some black, white, and Asian. We got everything, almost everything. But we are going to be talking
Irish
about,
too.
That's true.
Is this real? Are we doing this?
Yes, I represent Ireland.
Yeah, he has red hair.
All right, that's not why. That's not why. But
I'm not doing this with y'all today. God damn it, we're here to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. All right, so guys, that's what this episode is going to basically be about. It is also going to be obviously comparing Final Fantasy VII Remake to the original Final Fantasy VII. And let's get into it. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to jump into is just obviously the graphics on this game for the remake are fucking phenomenal. Like, they really did the damn thing. The game looks so expensive is the word I want to use. As somebody who I have no idea how much money it costs. Anthony can speak to this a bit more, but I have no idea how much money it costs to do CG and special effects and things like that in anything. But I just imagine that this game had to be very expensive and was a long time coming just because of the character models and the environments and the living, feeling ecosystem that it has. It's really, really well done.
More so the blood, sweat, and tears of the artists, or the fact that they didn't get to see their families for, I don't know what, 12 months.
I'm glad that they didn't.
I can promise you that they had sleeping bags and they slept under their desk.
Heck yeah. That's the dream. There's a cute girl anime. There's a cute girl anime called
New Game.
Yeah, New Game about, and that concept even made it into that anime. Like, it's just baked into their society.
Did they work that hard? Did they sleep in sleeping bags?
It's just the sleeping bags thing. It's just one of those things that, like, you know how sometimes in a slice of life anime something will happen and it'll seem like out of left field, but it's treated so normally by all the characters that it's just like, well, this obviously is something that, like, they're taking for granted as normal, right?
Yes.
The sleeping bags thing was in there like that. Like, someone was just doing it and they moved on, and I was like, all right.
I've seen enough anime to the, like, obviously you can't look at anime and be like, this is what Japan's like. But there's certain things where, like, if it happens enough time, you're like, I think this is real. And I've seen enough anime where people are just, like, working in an office, sleeping under their desk in a sleeping bag to wake up and work again. I'm like, oh no, this is real. Like, this happens.
Yes, it's so real that recently there was a story that came out, and I want to say it was only about 2 weeks ago, but a guy got fired from his office because he moved into it. Like, when everyone else would go home, he would secretly pull out a sleeping bag and, like, night clothes, pajamas, and he would sleep in the office, and he got rid of his own apartment, or he was renting out his own apartment or some shit like that, and basically just having someone else pay for his rent while he lived.
That's pretty baller. Office. That's pretty baller.
Yeah,
actually.
They found him out and fired him, unfortunately, though. So
I mean, terrible for your mental health. I mean, there's like other people that, like, work to the point that they die. Like, literally, they die at work. They die from overworking themselves. That is not a joke.
Well, that happens. That's America too.
That is, and I feel like Final Fantasy VII Remake actually has some of that as well, because, again, if you look at the original game, right? Phenomenal game, by the way. Final Fantasy VII, the original in 1997, was so ahead of the curve. I was listening to a video that compared the music from the original game to the remake made in 2020. So over 2 decades, it was, they're apart. But just looking at the game, the polygons they used in Final Fantasy VII, at that time, it was like, okay, this looks pretty damn good, seeing those models at that time, especially when you get in battle and you get, like, the actual 3D models and everything. But then you look at the opening sequence of the remake, and that scene where the train first rides into the reactor and they jump off and Cloud comes down and he does that little Black Widow pose where he's like head down first and then he lifts his head up all dramatically and he has his sword on his back and he's like, hurry up, Merc. You got Barrett and he's all super detailed with his sunglasses on in the fucking nighttime. It's just very, very well done. And I got goosebumps watching, and, like, I played the demo for Final Fantasy VII Remake before it actually came out, but I got goosebumps from that opening cinematic just because I remember playing that so many times on the original, and then seeing what they did to it was insane.
And if you're one of the 12 people in the world that owns a PS5, it looks even better.
Damn.
Like,
it looks good on PC. It looks really good on PC.
Oh, man,
it's when they're zooming out. It's the zoom out on Midgar for me, because that's when they play the we were talking about musical motifs before we started, but that's when they play the original they use the original instrumentation of the original Final Fantasy VII theme to play the motif on the zoom out with the comet coming down in the logo at the same time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Oh, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking of the PC version and graphics, so my favorite thing about the PC version is all the DLC outfits they gave to Tifa, like the Italian swimsuit.
How dare you do that?
Her Italian swimsuit is just.
Wait, I didn't see these.
Tifa is a beautiful character.
I've gotten so many YouTube recommendations, so many outfit changes in that game. I'm just like, man, the mod community
those were
out
mods.
of control.
Yeah, those were
They're all
community is out of control.
Those YouTube recommendations are everywhere.
They made an entirely new game.
They go.
Yo, I saw a Tifa mod YouTube video that was like original Tifa design with jiggle physics, and obviously I clicked on it.
I've seen that same video.
I don't want to talk about why I clicked on it, but in the actual video, it's the scene where she's like crying. It's the like super emotional scene where she's crying at Cloud, and I was just like, this is wrong. This isn't right.
But you watched the whole video, didn't you?
I mean, I clicked through it a little bit. I saw what I needed to see, and I moved on. I didn't want too much context because it hurt me inside. That scene was very good to begin with.
Yeah, this game,
it didn't feel right.
It just looks phenomenal. And I think like the way they've redesigned a lot of the things, so just skipping around to all parts of the game here, and this is going to be, obviously, we're going to be talking about everything that happens in the game. So if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake, or if you don't want to get spoiled, I suggest you leave now. That's my only disclaimer. But yeah, things like Hell House, which I didn't know how they could possibly find a way to fit something like that into the game, right? Because you just fight it as a random enemy in like the Sector 7 slums, just like a random enemy you fight, right? But then how do you work that into the remake where everything looks super realistic, and that was just never a realistic enemy? They found a way to do that by making it kind of like one of Don Corneo's little fucking experimental robotic machines. And
Hell House was fucking dope.
That is, that's part for me, Kenny, honestly, because me and Gary basically watched me play the game from start to finish. Like, he would come in my room.
Same, I watched Ant play.
Yes, literally, I had an audience while I played the game the entire time. So we were just blown away when we saw Hell House was the boss of like Don Corneo's Coliseum, like the final boss of that. And just the way they did it. And also the boss was pretty challenging, like switching between what elements he's weak to at the time. Sometimes physical attacks do one, sometimes magic does one. It was just a really cool fight and pretty like decent difficulty, but just the way they found the way to incorporate the Hell House was, I think, just genius. Like, I thought that there would be no way that would even return. Like, I just thought that there would be no possible realm where I would see that as a anything in the remake, and it blew my mind.
And I must be in the minority because I hated that fight.
It's a frustrating fight.
I hated it.
It is frustrating, yeah.
It's well done, but I did not.
It took me like 3 hours. It took me a very long time, and I haven't played the original. I have to give the context that I haven't played the original. And I assume I'm the only one here that hasn't.
Correct.
When I saw Hell House, I immediately thought, it was the first time I thought, this is not new. For sure, this was from the original. There's no way someone came up with Hell House. Yeah, they were just like, "Oh, let's put Hell House in the game." There's no way that's not a new. There's a new idea that someone pitched the remake.
They did it twice in the game too, with that slicer thing, the long buzzsaw monster that you kind of just fight in the Shinra building in the original. It's a regular monster that you fight after Sephiroth murders everyone, and then you get to this part where like, it's towards the end of the game in a remake, but it's a boss, and it's a pretty ignorant boss too. It does this one attack that gave me game over once on hard mode, because it kind of flies up above you and it starts dropping these little like balls of electricity or some shit, and if they just hit you, your character gets shock stunned and then they get killed. And hard mode just does a ton of it's like a worm, but it's like
worm thing. Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh,
it's like a buzzsaw. That used to be a regular monster in the game of the original Final Fantasy VII, but now in the remake they made it into a whole boss, and it was like this whole cutscene and everything like that. And I like that they do stuff like that, because even that monster doesn't seem like something that you would encounter normally. So they made it abnormal to encounter it. And I think that like just that decision making makes me think about the rest of the game, because one of the things I do like about the remake is that it's episodic and it's only focusing on the Midgar part, which probably takes everyone maybe 6 to 8 hours to complete in the base game. Right? Like, Midgar is the beginning, and after that, there's so much more game, the Final Fantasy story. Like, there's so much more game, there's so much more world out there, but like, we literally spend probably 40 hours If you're like me, more because I 100% completed the game, but I spent a good amount of time, and I'm thinking to myself like, holy shit, this is just Midgar. Like,
yeah, it's pretty impressive what they did. I know there's a lot of people that don't like obviously what they did and like saying it's filler or padding, but I actually really enjoy what they did with the remake and that they took the beginning section of the game, which like you said is between 6 and 8 hours,
yeah,
and they made it into like a full 40 to 60 hour game.
Yeah, I felt like I got my money's worth. I didn't feel like
it doesn't feel stressed. It doesn't feel padded, and the extra context they give to all the characters really gives it a lot more weight in like different scenarios. Like you said, with the certain monsters that were just random encounters, recontextualizing them to make them actually fit with the lore and the story and the theme of what's going on. That's the kind of work that I want to see in a remake. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, okay, this isn't random encounters. You're actually living in the world. So, like, would it make sense for you to just see this thing walking around?
Right.
Like, probably not. And so, being able to recontextualize that and make it fit into the new story, I think is really cool and deserves praise.
And something else that they really did that I really enjoyed is when you are going through the Shinra Museum and you see all of like the enemies that you've been fighting,
yes,
like as like prototypes, like throughout the museum. I'm like, oh, that's so clever. That was like really cleverly done because it did really make it feel a lot more grounded. But moreover, more than just the enemies, they did the same thing to the characters too, because like the entire wall market part of the game was
so good.
Like, it was like a relatively short part of the game in the original, and also it was kind of like a joke, like Cloud cross-dressing was like a joke, and like it was like a hee hee ha ha, but they kind of like transformed it and in essence made Andrea Rodea like a character that was real and kind of like nodded to the LGBTQ
for
community.
sure. There's definitely hints of that.
Actually making it a real character and like kind of honestly like a celebration of just queerness, which
for sure
I thought
there's a lot of that too. I love the wall market part of the game. It's honestly one of the best parts. And speaking of, since we've been talking about visuals a lot here, the just like the dresses and everything that you can get, there's 9 different dresses between 3 for each character of Tifa, Aerith, and Cloud.
Why does Cloud get 3 different dresses?
What do you mean?
Why not?
What kind of question is that?
Couture, that's why.
It's just because like I just think that's so cool. Like the fact that they all have different dresses and like goddamn Tifa's dresses. Anyway,
9 total is insane. Also,
but like I wasn't ready for Cloud to have 3 different dresses too. I was like, that shit's wild. But
and
it's cool.
It's really cool because I just think like the scene where Aerith comes out in that red dress, which is like the best one that you can get, and it has the fireworks sequence in it, that took my breath away. Because in the original game, it's not really a big deal. She comes out, everyone thinks she's beautiful, but they're little polygons. There is not really it's not that crazy in 97 when you see it. But when you see the visuals, because everyone looks so good, like the textures of the characters, their skin, their hair, everything looks amazing. When she walks on the bridge towards Cloud in that red dress and the fireworks happen in the background, they zoom in on her face. It is just one of the most beautiful scenes in video games that I've ever seen, like in any video game ever. That scene right there really does it to me. And I guess because, I mean, I'm sure like Chris, you've definitely enjoyed the scene as well, but knowing the original and then seeing that was like mind blowing to me. Like 7-year-old me could never fathom that would be the future.
Well, it's interesting because like, I was reading, there was like the controversy running around and I didn't have like a huge stake in it. So like I got curious and I started reading interviews with the director and stuff about why it turned into this.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of just said like, this is just like my recollection of it, so I might get it wrong a little bit, but I think the gist of what he said was just that like this was the Final Fantasy VII I always saw in the first place.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yep, I did see that. I saw that exact type of rhetoric.
Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, that's cool. Because like I also saw that a lot of the stuff that people called filler was existing side story stuff. Like people were making like Midgar fan fictions and stuff and publishing them, and some of that stuff made it into the game.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
That like that like detective girl Kyrie Kanan. She has like the striped leggings, the horizontal striped leggings.
I don't know if I remember that.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
She's like that one. She's that girl that's like trying to scam Cloud the whole time.
Okay.
She like stole Don Corneo's key at the end in her side quest. and then like made you like run around doing stuff for her. She's the reason you had to go back to it's a whole thing. But there's like there's just a short story called like there was like a light novel called Final Fantasy VII. The kids are all right at Turk's side story. It's just like a random small book. It says it's 349 pages, but that's where that's from.
That's
it's all from.
Yeah. So
as you were mentioning it, I was like, wait, why does it look familiar? Why does it sound familiar? But I can't remember. It is in Intergrade. It's in Yuffie's story. She's in Yuffie's story. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I've never played that.
She's not in Justin. She was in the original. I know she was. I swear, unless I'm crazy, was she only in the?
I don't know, but I will follow up on what you're saying in that I do think that's really cool, like adding things from the extended works like light novels or, you know, all because FF7 out of all the Final Fantasies has the most of an extended universe. They've done the most with FF7 compared to any other Final Fantasy.
It is certainly the most milked cow in the Square Enix lineup.
Yeah, fitting that in, like I just find all of that stuff really interesting. Like you get to flesh out the world. Like even like okay, Kyrie, as far as I've remembered, definitely isn't in the original Final Fantasy, right? No. But even characters like that aside, characters like fucking Jessie, who was in the original Final Fantasy, but like not really relevant.
Right.
Like how much more fleshed out she is. Like it's so much more enjoyable in the remake.
Man, I can't tell you when like toward the end when Jessie, because like when Jessie Biggs and Wedge die in the original, you're like, okay, well they're dead. And in this one, when Jessie was like, "You stole me that pizza," I was like, "No."
So that's what I was going to say. I actually love how they flushed out these characters so much that you actually feel frantic. So the part where you know that they're going to drop the plate on the Sector 7 slums and kill everybody, that part for me in the remake was so frantic. I actually felt like there was a timer in the top right. Like as you're running through the place and it's all on fire and the people are running towards you because they're trying to escape, right? And you're just Aerith and you're looking for that little girl who like comes up to you, she carries her out. That part for me, and all the part where you're like going up the steps to get to the top of the plate and everything, like that entire sequence to me felt extreme. I had anxiety, when you're watching a movie that's a thriller. The feeling of intense, like I need to save people. This shit is about to fall at any moment, and I don't want these characters to die because I know them. Like you know Biggs and Wedge and Jessie at that point. Like you actually know them. So when you see Jessie die, like in your arms, it's an insane scene to watch. Because it's like, holy shit, this character has been in the game for 40 hours almost. It's like this is not just some random person with a little pieces of dialogue. They flushed out so many characters and made them so much bigger than they originally were. Even Don Corneo, like the way he is, this fucking sleazy like Italian guy who just is disgusting and like the boss of an underworld that's really disgusting and nasty, and just all these dark world dealings that he's into. The fact that the honeybee is like, you know, come down to the honeybee, here we sell pussy. Like they just have like so much going.
Oh my god, the freaking the what's it called?
I just made that song up.
The orphanage that Biggs used to care for, that Aerith is now volunteering at, that you're getting flowers for. The like female director of the orphanage, that like the black woman with an afro.
Oh yeah. I know.
If you go into the alleys, if you go into the back alleys, she's behind the honeybee, costume, she's there. Yeah. She's making money for the kids or something like that.
She's in
she was like, I always wanted to be a dancer. Yeah.
I thought that was random as hell.
I was like,
all
did
that
they reuse
little
the model?
shit
But no.
Is really, really cool. And like, what was the other thing that I wanted to say? It's like on the same topic
of them developing the characters way more than they were in the original.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just a lot. So when you think about what's going to be happening in, I don't know how many parts are going to be, part 2, part 3, but when you think about just how much more fleshed out all of that's going to be as well, I don't know, it's really, really fucking exciting. Because
even like, okay, so that Dance minigame that you have that was not really in the original, that shit was fun to me. Like I really liked the entire part where Cloud is forced to dance for a wig and all that. And then you have the squats part where you got to do that mini game, and that even that mini game is a way different this time around. And on hard mode, it's just out of control. But yeah, there's like so many things they did to make the characters. Also, seeing those wrestling characters, right? So you go into that one gym where you get the wig from, and the guy pulls it out of his crotch and he gets punched into the glass in the original game. Going into that area, seeing those characters all really developed as really nice 3D models. is so different than seeing just these like little polygons that don't have faces really. Like they barely even have a look to them. And now you get to see their full face, their bodies, just how ridiculous they are. They look like those 80s workout videos where your underpants are on the outside, you got all this spandex on, and you're doing all these crazy poses. It looks like one of those workout video places. This is really cool.
But even outside of thematically, what they did really well thematically, mechanically, what they did was also really well done, because the system from the original, using the ABT gauge, right, having that as like a lot of people were upset that it wasn't going to be a take turn RPG, right?
Yeah,
like original. But I always say to those OG Final Fantasy fans, of which I am a part. None of when was the last time that Final Fantasy was strictly take turn? Because the original Final Fantasy VII wasn't strictly take turn either. The first one I ever played was 8, and then I went back and played 7 and some of the older ones, and I realized in playing them, maybe not as like a child, that like they weren't really take turn. Because when I played Final Fantasy VIII, I was expecting for it to be like, like strictly take turn, like let's say like Final Fantasy X. But it's not. Like if you put the controller down and go to take a piss, you'll come back and you're dead. That's not like strictly take turn.
Yeah, that used to scare me about those games too. The ATB keeps going even if you're choosing an option, and you can put it on wait. But if you don't manually put it on wait, they will attack you while you're choosing options in Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy VII. You could be in the menu and you're getting attacked.
And so like the way that they translated that to the remake, I thought was really good, because like if you played Final Fantasy 15, right?
Yep.
You go to the menu and everything just freezes.
Yep.
Right.
It slows down dramatically.
But yeah, in Final Fantasy VII Remake, it just slows down significantly, which not only is like great for you strategically, but it's beautiful to look at.
It is really nice. I love that.
Cinematic slow motion is so crazy.
Yeah,
how much did it cost to do that? Like just to add that to the game is so
good. You realize that
okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I googled this earlier when you were talking about how much it cost to make it. The original one cost more than the remake.
Oh shit.
Yeah, the original one cost a lot more than the remake. I googled it and it said the original cost 240 million adjusted for inflation. Oh, 214 million adjusted for inflation. And so far, Final Fantasy VII Remake is up to 140.
That's fucking insane.
Probably a lot of it was probably like the matte paintings in the background. So like
maybe
they fixed camera. They had to like have someone paint all of those like different backgrounds. So like and then even like CG or whatever. So
yeah, and then a lot of those systems are being built from scratch. Whereas at this point, you can build Final Fantasy VII Remake on top of existing engines and stuff. But I'm sure a lot of
the voice acting and stuff too.
Oh my god,
7 Remake is so good. Right?
Is it made
actually, I wanted to say that, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think it was making. But
I feel like you can always tell it's Unreal based on the particles. When you see like Unreal has a very distinct like particle identity. Like whenever you see like the little particles floating in,
so like when Air has the little green firefly things flying up, you think?
Or whenever someone returns to the live stream, like
it's
like
Unreal. It's Unreal.
Yeah, because it's got a very
making an Unreal Engine is definitely helps a ton in terms of budget, because you don't have to, because what Final Fantasy and Square in general used to do for all of their games, and that's kind of what caused FF13 to have such troubled development, and KH3 for a little bit, was the fact that they always make a brand new engine for every fucking game they make.
13 was beautiful though, and I remember it very fondly.
I do remember that it was beautiful gowns, if nothing else. That game,
the music was so good. That game, I think that game had the best music of anything. I think about the Final Fantasy 13 music a lot.
The title screen for FF13, I can't hear it without getting a little choked up.
Yeah,
that game's title screen is really good. But
it's incredible.
Speaking of the music, before we started this episode, Ant was about to start ranting about the motifs and music of FF7.
It's just so the music is so good. Like when you go, I think it was like I had been liking the music throughout, but when you fight Genova,
oh my god,
right? You hear the music, you hear the first phase of the music, and I was like, okay, I hear it. And then the second phase, you're like, I hear it some more, right? And then when you get to the third phase, it's such a payoff. Like that buildup was like getting to like that final third phase of Genova's theme, and like hearing like those synths after there was like kind of this like epic choir like build up to it, it was so well done. And like the music in this game is so well done.
I just watched a video, like I said earlier, it was showing you get to hear the difference between the original and the remake. And I'll say this, I was genuinely surprised at how well the original stacks up to 2020 version of the game. Like a game that came out 23 years later sounds, let's just say the 1997 version actually sounds phenomenal still to this day. It aged so well. So I do welcome, like, obviously some of the changes and additions they made to the remake, but honestly, the original soundtrack is so amazing that I feel like it had to be part of the reason why Final Fantasy VII is so beloved. Like, it just sounds great. Like that opening sequence, the battle theme, like they did a battle theme comparison between, you know, the original 97 game and the 2020, the 2020 game, and it just sounded phenomenal on both of them. But even
which one? There's like 7 versions of what the battle.
So I will say this: it was the base battle theme, and I feel like it was from whatever the most recent version of the original 97 like game was. I can just tell the guy was using the highest quality version of the 97 Final Fantasy VII when I was listening to it, because it sounded very punchy. Like I was like, I don't imagine that it actually sounded this good in 97. I could be wrong. It's almost like he turned the volume up or tweaked some things, but it just sounded so good. And then he would play the 2020 version. Sephiroth's theme, for example, I love the remakes version of Sephiroth's theme when you fight him at the end. That shit just... Sephiroth's theme always sounds good to me. I liked it in Advent Children, the remake for that one. I liked it in the original Final Fantasy VII game. I liked it in Kingdom Hearts. But it just sounds so good in the remake.
One Winged Angel Rebirth is probably the best version of it.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called Rebirth.
Okay, that shit sounds amazing.
I want Ham on the soundtrack, so I like.
Yeah. I have it. Here it is. I own it. I own the soundtrack. Here it is. It's like 7 CDs. It's so many CDs.
Yeah,
but like, my god,
there's just so many different things.
A lot of it's iconic at like a deep level of like culture too. Like it feels like if you say battle theme, if you say like JRPG battle theme, the Final Fantasy VII one, I think, is the one that comes up for most people, even if they haven't played it. Like, it's stuck. I feel like it's stuck somehow. And then, like, Aerith's theme stuck somehow. I feel like the like... I mean, there's the glissando, the arpeggio that every Final... Or it's not an arpeggio. There's, like, a run that goes... That's in, like, every Final Fantasy forever.
I know exactly what you're talking
about. The prelude?
Or just that theme, just that like not theme, it's not even a motif, just that like it's always in every Final Fantasy somewhere at some point they play
yeah I can hear it in my head as you said it, like that.
It's very often on a title screen.
Yes.
Yeah but speaking of that theme, just like brief aside on Final Fantasy 15, like its appearance in Final Fantasy 15 is probably my favorite one because it's like dark and kind of desolate.
Yes, Final Fantasy 15 has a very dark tone.
The prelude is usually like hopeful and uplifting, but like in Final Fantasy 15, what's called In the Light of the Crystal, and it's like it sounds kind of hopeless in a way. But anyway, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
They did the damn thing with the music. I just think about the scenes like when Cloud falls on Aerith's flower bed, and you're in that little church or whatever, and then Reno comes in and. Like even the music for that part when you're fighting him, and then the music when she's trying to escape and you have to like push barrels over and stuff. You remember the original game was like very frantic too in that moment. They have that very rushed. The sound of the music it feels like someone's chasing. Like it's a chase type of music. And so you hear the remake, it's just they do a good job of transitioning it into making it modern. They do every area. Whatever it sounded like in the original, they did a good job to not completely change it and make it foreign to what it used to feel like or sound like. And that is a skill in itself, because I know those composers, they do a good job.
It sounds like it honors like where it came from.
Yeah, as opposed to just trying to like change it completely. But yeah, so we've talked about the new character models, like how they've really obviously made them phenomenal looking using the Unreal Engine, and then the music is great. The environments, I think about the actual environments. There's a scene, it's towards the end of the game where you guys are going to the Shinra building finally. Like you're climbing up to the Shinra building and the sun is setting, so it's like very orange in the background. Like the sun is coming down and you're getting higher and higher, and you can see the entire Midgar. You can basically see all of Midgar, and it just looks so fucking good. Like the backgrounds in this game are next level, just like the actual backgrounds that you see that you can't really interact with, but you can just see them. You see birds flying and shit. Like it's really, really well done.
The thing I thought of when you were like climbing up that building for me, it was like, you know how in Breath of the Wild when you're climbing up the Ganon's castle at the end?
Those two.
And Breath of the and Breath of the Wild looks amazing already. I was thinking as I was climbing up to the Shinra building at the end, like, this is what I was imagining when I was playing that game. And I didn't even know there was anything left to imagine when I was playing that one to begin with.
I'm assuming that must be like an epic part of that game.
Yeah, you're like climbing up to Ganon's castle, and it finally plays Link's the regular Legend of Zelda leitmotifs for the first time ever. As you're like climbing up to the castle, and like everything's attacking you, and then you get up, you're just climbing up, and it's like playing all that stuff, and you start to see regular Legend of Zelda enemies for the first time. That's kind of like it was like one of those, like, it was like connecting to the rest of the series.
Yeah,
and like as I was going up, I was like, oh, this is awesome. But then like when I climbed up to the Shinra building, I was like, this reminds me of that, but it's just even better somehow. Somehow it's even better.
They do a fucking phenomenal job.
What I really like about that part of the game, especially is like as you're climbing, a lot of the cameras become fixed again. And it pays homage to like the original.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you'll be like trying to find your way around an environment, and there's a fixed camera, and there's like this kind of epic painting in the background.
Yeah, that's actually exactly how it was too. The camera, you can't control it with the R stick anymore, like the right analog stick. Yeah. It's fixed on a section, and then you could be cloud climbing over here, like on the far left of the screen, and they're kind of showing you like the side where you can see just Midgar in the sun setting. It is beautiful to look at.
There is something to be said about those fixed camera moments of like some of the original Final Fantasy games and just older games in general, but Final Fantasy, I think, did it most famously. But obviously, open world games are really fun and cool, and like having control of the camera is nice to, you get to fully look at everything. Yeah. But in those original Final Fantasies, when you would get into certain areas, like the way the camera would be positioned and the way you can see because they position it in a way where like you're seeing the most beautiful take, you know what I mean? Because like it's a fixed camera,
right?
And they create these really breathtaking moments where you're sitting there, like, holy shit, like look at this place that I'm at, and as you're kind of exploring it and. Like, although it could be frustrating, like, oh, it's a fixed camera, and so it's like tricky to, maybe see certain things.
Sometimes, yeah.
The visual it gives you it's one of those like controlled visuals where, for example, in movies or TV shows, everything you see is a controlled visual. It's exactly what they want you to see and how and when they want you to see it. And in most video games, you don't get that experience because you have the freedom of the camera and like all of this different pacing. Right,
so you could miss something, and
exactly,
you might not be getting the best visual possible.
Exactly. So when you get those sort of fixed camera moments, especially in a video game, and the fact that you're experiencing it, I think it hits really hard in like FF Remake because you go through most of the game having full control, like how most modern games are. But when you get to like that fixed camera moment and it really kind of focuses in on like the breadth of the area that you're in, I don't know. I just think it's something that adds to the experience a lot.
Also, it adds to the storytelling because like the whole point of that part of the game is like, look at what Shinra's done and how they destroyed this part of
that is definitely what I got from that, Anthony. You see Midgar, and you can see the Sector 7 that they just fucking destroyed, right? Yeah. Like it's in ruins. You can see all of Midgar basically, but you really see the destruction that they caused by dropping that plate. And it just makes you feel like, holy shit, man, like that's really fucked. You destroyed a lot of people's homes that already were living in squalor basically and poverty, and now they have like nowhere to go. They're invading other sectors. And I use the word invading there because that's how other people feel about them, because no one wants, like, even though people want to help and stuff like that, a lot of times when it comes down to people who are less fortunate, they're like, I don't have enough to feed my own family. Like, how the fuck are you guys going to come here and try to take more of the resources that we barely even have here? You know what I mean? Like, it's always that type of thing. And it makes poor people hate poor people. So when you see that, like, destruction of an entire section, right? Like an entire, let's say a whole city just destroyed, I don't know, when you're climbing up there to go like take down Shinra, if you feel it, you feel that. I remember in the original, you hear that song playing. It's like a very, it reminds me like a One Piece type of song where all the Straw Hats are strutting at once. There's a song playing where you're climbing up the Shinra building in the original game from Wall Market. Like there's this specific song, you only hear it once in the entire game, and it's when you're climbing up to get to the Shinra building. And it stops the second you get there. But I just love that part of the game. You have to do like all those weird moments where you swing on something, you have to time it right, and then swing, press X and jump off. You guys playing the original, you know what I'm talking about. But that song right there, you feel that same exact thing when you're playing the remake. And I was like, how the fuck did they capture that without having to make you do the weird wire swing thing all the time? And I don't know, it's just amazing.
And I will say you didn't play the DLC yet, but
I have not.
For those of us who have,
because it's only a PS5 thing, right? Like
PC has it also. Okay, PC does have it also. But there was a moment at the end of Intergrade that showcased that even more. I feel like where it somehow like it didn't hit home more, but it hit home just as much again at the end of Intergrade.
I might play it if it's on PC. It depends on how much it costs though, because I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
I just rebought
$20 or something like that.
How long?
You can rebuy the. Oh, it's like, I don't actually know. I think I spent like at least 10, 15 hours in it.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Well, I did all Fort Condor. There's like a mini game that I did it all. It feels like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was like, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to
That mini game is pretty fun.
Fort Condor, yeah.
I remember the original game. You guys are talking about when I'm thinking that when you meet Yuffie in like those bushes and there's that Mount Condor thing that you can defend. From like those or whatever.
They turned it into a board game, and then there's like a ladder in the game.
Oh,
there's like a ranking ladder in the game, and like all the different characters you played against, like even Rosh, the motorcycle guy, he's on the ladder. You play him as you go up the ladder. This is like a weird. Yeah. They just put random people in this. Yeah,
so,
he was cool.
He was not in the original story at all, and I'm guessing that they're going to use him more later on because he only played that one part in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But that character Rosh, he has like reddish hair.
I thought it was Roche.
Roche, that's what it is.
Sorry, I
think it is Roche. It's spelled Roche. So it's probably Roche. But he was on the motorcycle minigame that they also expanded upon that and made it feel a little bit more fun to do. And it's supposed to just like slicing left, slicing right. You have like the spin slash. Now you can do a blade beam attack and stuff like that. But he comes out of nowhere. I was like, who the fuck is this character? Like, I do not remember this guy.
He does that
one-on-one fight with him was like probably my favorite one-on-one fight.
Yes. It felt very Axel versus Roxas.
Yeah,
it was very cool.
Like soldier versus soldier, and that's the first time that you fought someone that can actually just like give it to you back.
That's true. Cloud. You're right. Up until that point in the game, you're just dicking on everybody with your Buster Sword, and I can just beat everybody up, and then he comes up and he's like, "Actually, you can't just hit me how you want. Like, you have to use Punisher mode against him a lot. Like, you have to actually use countering."
On the topic of you saying soldier versus soldier, as someone that didn't play the original, I didn't know Cloud wasn't a soldier until later. After I finished the game, I Googled it and started watching like theory videos. None of and since Fraser's already said no spoilers, we're gonna spoil things. I fully didn't. It's completely hidden to me. I don't know if you guys like noticed that, like, but like as someone that didn't have that context, the fact that there was like that like mental stuff going on with him, I didn't. It never even I never even got a hint of it at all. Yeah, I didn't know that it somehow like they. But once you like, I rewatched the cutscenes after knowing that, I was like, oh, it's so obvious. But like, no, if I didn't know, and I just didn't know the whole time.
Well, that's one of those things where you're kind of supposed to be when you're first. You're kind of supposed to be confused. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where like it's one of those things where when you experience something a second time, third time, etc. When you see the things you didn't see before, you're like, oh shit.
Yep.
So that's that's all.
Yeah, you don't find out until very late in the original game.
Okay.
Like the whole Zach's memories and all that stuff, and him basically.
Yeah. It was like I saw that Zach cutscene. I was like, I have to know what this is about.
But then that brings up an important question. How do you guys feel about? And I guess this is probably one of the divisive things in this game is. How do you guys feel about this being essentially like a, I guess you would call it like a requel, like a remake, but also
So the director said in an interview that the word remake is very operative and it has two meanings. Obviously, remake in the sense of we're remaking a game from the past, right? Like we're bringing it into the future, but also remake as in it literally is being redone differently.
Like
it's not one-to-one. It is not
a meta name because it's a remake of a game, but also it's Sephiroth fucking doing a new timeline. Yes. Sephiroth, like, listen, I lost. I'm not losing again. Watch what I do now.
Yo, when that when the weight of that finally like was upon me, and like in Aerith, it's like you're not right. You're not supposed to exist.
Right.
And I was just like, and I'm like, wait, am I about to fight Sephiroth? That's not supposed to happen.
That's definitely not supposed to happen in Midgar.
Like, and then I was like, wait, so Sephiroth is making like a new time. Like Sephiroth knows that he lost.
Yes.
He knows he lost, and he was like, nah.
Yeah, they can see the future.
many-
There's
so
all these
crazy.
theories that they like Aerith and the ancients, basically the two ancients in the game. They can see the future, so they already know how it ends normally. And those whispers are kind of aiding and making sure that it goes the way it was supposed to go. For example, there's a part where fucking Barrett gets killed by Sephiroth, basically. Sephiroth just straight up stabs Barrett in the stomach and like wipes him out. Zero diff, and the game goes slow motion because everyone can't believe it. And then the whispers just kind of come out and they revive him essentially. But there's a lot of that throughout the game. And I know people had a lot of problems with the whole whispers thing because they come out of nowhere. Like the first time you see him is when you're with Aerith, just walking through the city and they just spiral around her and shit. And it's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I want to say there's a lot of people, and this frustrated me so much through my experience of the game. So, like I said, I didn't play it myself, but I was there for every stream. Ant streamed it on our channel, and I was pretty much there every single time. So I experienced the whole game that way. And through like random people in the comment section, and then also just me seeing people otherwhere, there was a lot other places. There was a lot of people that read. This is one of the reasons why I hate the internet. The internet's great, but I also hate it. Yep. They read the script of the game. So the game script got leaked before the game came out. The game script got leaked. And this happens with manga too. People read the leaks of the game before they play it, or read the leaks of the manga before they play it. So it'll be like the script of the game, and so they'll read things that happen, like, oh, this is terrible, this is corny, like, and they just like completely shit on the game. So by the time the game comes out, there's a bunch of people that already have a negative opinion of it because they just read the script. They didn't actually experience it, right? There's a reason why a movie or a video game isn't just words that go past the screen. You know what I mean? Like when you watch a movie, it's not just the movie script scrolling. It's
like
not the start of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like the script is just like one piece of the puzzle that has to be put together. So if you're just reading the script and then judging the quality of the full product off of that, it's really stupid. And there's a lot of people that did that. So for example, when we were experiencing the game and the things with the whispers and all the small changes that they made to flesh out the game, there was people in my chat that I remember were just hating on it over and over. And they kept talking about it. I was like, did you play this game already? And they're like, no, I read the script. And I was like, oh. And then I had that whole spiel.
Yeah, because it's like, what the fuck? Like, if you haven't played the game and experienced it for all the magic that it has, I don't...
Yeah. But then as they watched us play, they were like, oh, maybe I was... Like, they started to, like, watch it, and they were still trying to hate. Like, it was funny, because they were like...
It's hard to be wrong.
They were saying, like... They were going like, oh, maybe I was a little wrong. Like, oh, this is actually better than I thought it was. But they were still, like, trying to hate, too. And it's like, dude, just get off it.
If I'm being honest, Final Fantasy VII Remake is probably my favorite Final Fantasy game now.
Like, I've heard that from a lot of people.
Personally, I feel like it is the best Final Fantasy to come out since 10.
I agree with that for sure. That's easy for me to agree with, by the way.
And it is easily the most interesting Final Fantasy has been since 10.
Yeah, it's just something like, it's not even just the nostalgia, because I was thinking about, I like the things in the game regardless of knowing the original story. Like, I just enjoy it outside of it.
We have Chris here, and not just Chris, I have multiple other friends that never played FF7 original and played the remake. And all of them also said, this is the best Final Fantasy I've ever played. Now, they've played, like I have a friend specifically that I know played, like, 4, 5, 6, and then, like, 10, 12, and 13, and 15, right? Like, those are the ones they played. And then, like, 7 Remake. And they're like, 7 Remake is the best Final Fantasy I've ever played. So, and they never played the original 7.
Yeah, it's not a hot take anymore. Like, when I first played it, I was scared because the first week it came out, I took a week off of work to play it, and I had 70 hours in the first week. I had 77 hours to be exact in the first week. I
always see you post those Facebook.
I do. I posted. Yeah, I posted
like 100% complete.
It was 77 hours in the first week. I 100%ed the game. I've never 100%ed a game in my life. Like, I've never. So, okay, I shouldn't say I've never 100%ed a game in my life. I haven't 100%ed a modern game where they actually show you that you 100%ed the game. Like, they actually have a percentage of how much you completed it, a play log in Final Fantasy VII that says you got all 9 dresses, you got all the materia possible, you got every summon, you got every possible, and like, you know, all the endings, like everything that you could possibly do. You've seen every conversation secretly with Barrett, with Aerith, with Tifa, all, like, everything. Like, that was the first time I've ever done it, and it's because I enjoyed playing it so much that I didn't mind going back to it. And the game encourages you to go back through the game because they have that chapter select after you complete it, which I think is another phenomenal thing about the game. Like, you can just kind of jump into any chapter and completely replay it on any mode you want, easy, normal, or hard. And it's completely different when you play it on hard, not only because of the fucking crazy mechanics they put on hard. So hard mode in a lot of other games is like, oh, the enemies hit harder and you do less damage. That's like a hard mode in most games. That's hard mode. In this game, they fucking took away your MP cannot be regenerated once you start a chapter. So you start the chapter like, oh, I have this much MP, and you're stuck with that amount of MP the entire chapter. Also, benches only heal your HP. They do not heal MP. So there's like a lot of things that you also can't use items in battle at all. Like items just do not work on hard mode.
No, hard mode is hard.
Yes, it's actually it's really cool. I was like, holy shit! Like this is, you have to be so selective with when you use a cure spell, because it's like, well, I only have so much MP, and in that game, MP, like characters don't, outside of Aerith, of course, characters don't have a ton of MP, especially Barrett, for example, who's one of the best characters to play with. So you have to be very, very careful in how you use your MP, and I don't know, it's just such a cool system that they did to encourage you to go through the game. Normally, New Game Plus is like, okay, we're going to drop you at the beginning of the game again. You're going to have a selection of what you want to keep from the playthrough you already did. And you'll just start from the beginning and have to play through the whole thing that way. This one was like, we're going to give you all, you get to keep all your shit, but you're going to choose whatever chapter you want to go to and replay it again. And that, I don't know, for me, that was just really, really a cool way to do New Game Plus. I like the chapter thing, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, especially in a game that's so like story heavy and like, cutscene heavy. Yeah, it's probably the optimal way to approach that.
Yeah, the chapter thing really worked well. I think about in the early chapters, like you guys are going around trying to destroy these reactors, and you come to find out that your bombs aren't even fucking working, and that Shinra themselves are actually just destroying the reactors and blaming it on Avalanche. They kind of changed the tone of Avalanche in the first game is very extremist group that actually succeeded in, bombing these reactors. And then, in the remake, they kind of made it less apparent that these people are basically eco-terrorists that the protagonists are. And that is kind of like reality. Like a lot of people speculate that, other governments in the world, I won't say any names, but people speculate that some of the disasters that happen are man-made and that they're created by actual governments against their own people. So Final Fantasy VII was ahead of the time as far as making people look into that type of thing. Like, what if our own government was the ones who actually destroying the planet, and not just bad things are happening?
So I'm curious if like the following parts are gonna like really follow up on the eco-terrorism theme and like the like eco-awareness theme, only because like they've really kind of they've introduced like some pretty like wonky shit with the villain knowing that they lost and refusing to lose again. Yeah. So like I'm curious, and I mean I think it's great. I think it's great that Sephiroth is back and is like, I know exactly what you little fuckers are gonna do, and you're not gonna do it again.
Little fucker sounds like something he would really say to me. I don't know why. I think about the end of the Midgar arc in the original game is so cool to me, because you go to that place, Calm, I think it's the first village that you kind of stop at, the first town, and then you guys have that flashback about Sephiroth. Like Cloud tells you everything he knows about Sephiroth, and you actually get to play as Sephiroth for a little bit. Well, he kind of does everything on his own, but I can't wait at the thought of that in the remake. Like that part where y'all go to that first town, Calm, and you essentially see how broken he is, like while he is the strongest soldier that has ever existed. And just him actually is a good guy, because at the time he was fine, right? Before he knew his own origins, he was just a soldier. He listened to his orders. He was ridiculously stronger than everyone else, but never wielded it for anything bad. And then I just want to see how they're going to do that, because I don't even know where episode 2 of this whole thing is going to stop. Like, what is the stopping point? It's so interesting just to think about. Like, I think about the gold saucer. Such a big part of the original game. One of the coolest parts of the original game.
That's going to be huge.
Oh my God, it's going to be big, Kenny. Like, that part of the game is going to be so, just the way they did Wall Market. Wall Market in the remake is huge. It's
I had a lot to it.
I got lost in Wall Market.
Me too.
I would literally get lost. I'd be like, where am I?
I open my map a lot. Like when I played through the game, if I was streaming it, my chat would have been like, yo, you're in the map all the time. Like, dog, I'm lost. I am genuinely lost.
Chat is always hating. Like Ant was looking for, Ant plays a lot of RPGs, right? So you're used to looking through all the little crevices to try to find things. So there's a part like 30 hours of the game where somebody in chat was like, "Ant, stop face scraping every room you're in." because
oh my god, have you not
played like
Final Fantasy
up
game?
Against the fucking wall of every room, just like looking for everything.
At least it's not Dark Souls. It's hitting every pixel on every wall. Thank God.
Look, I was like, I'm gonna get every potion in this game.
Anthony and I, we play Final Fantasy VII Remake the exact same thing because Gary will watch me go through this is the first reactor when the game starts. And I don't know, like, even though I played the demo, I was like, I don't know if they changed shit since the demo, so I'm gonna scrub. I was running up against walls, like running into like as soon as it starts, right? And you can run backwards instead of running forwards. I ran backwards to see if there was anything back there, like, oh, there might be a chest behind me, and there was. It's just like in the original. So I really went extremely hard. But then most RPGs, you get a feel for where treasure is going to be, and you don't have to scrub every nook and cranny. Like once you get a feel like, oh, they only put it here. Like it'll always only be in this kind of place. It'll never be in such an obscure place. So once you kind of realize that, you can start to back off on the scrubbing every part of a room. But I love scrubbing. I'm a scrubber.
I'm not taking any chances.
Yep.
All right. Also, I just had a lot of fun with like the box dynamic physics. I was like kicking around all the boxes. I was like,
I like that too. I like that you can swing your weapon outside of combat. That is actually pretty fun to do. Yeah.
But the part of the game that I am looking forward to the most, or at least the following parts, is the City of the Ancients. Because at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, when Cloud and Sephiroth had that conversation, and Sephiroth is like, join me, and I was like, whoa, excuse me. and then like Cloud refuses, and he's like, 7 seconds until the end. Time enough for you perhaps, but what will you do with it? And like when at first I was like, what? I was so blown away by the entire
flashes
scene
too,
that I was like what? But then when I thought about it, like 7 seconds is how long it took for Sephiroth to descend through the church and kill Aerith. So that's what he's talking about. So like, I am curious, like how much things are going to change.
Yeah.
Is Aerith going to die, or is
the fact that there may be a change to the ending of this entire story makes me want to play it so bad.
Yeah. Well, I think as a product, so just to go back on like when you're making something like this and you say like, I want a game like this needs a budget that's huge, right? And you have to convince them to let you make this game this expensive looking.
Right.
But at the same time, when you remake, when you one-to-one remaster a game, people don't really talk about it because they like you talk about it a little, but it kind of fades away, right?
Yeah. Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy VIII remaster, they're just kind of already like, all right,
they go away.
It came out, and like everybody knew about it for a week, and then it's like, okay, that's it.
Yep. No matter how good you make it, there's only so much to talk about because you've already experienced everything in it. So like, what is there?
That is true, actually.
And then so if you one-to-one remake something at this level, it fails as a product. So when you're like going through it as a business and it's like, how do it has to change in a way that makes even the people that like are hardcore Final Fantasy fans say like, I have to see the next part.
Yeah.
Like
even if they're going to hate it and complain the entire time, they still want it.
And they did such a like subtle job of doing it to me because I was thinking about this in terms of when you're like plotting out how you're going to do it and how it'll sell and all that stuff and like showing people higher up your business plan and stuff like that.
Even
like,
the haters are going to play this game.
Yeah. It does everything right. Like the things that you love, will be there, but but then there's also things to look forward to maybe changing. Because like stuff is going to be different, but then like you were talking about the Golden Saucer, like that stuff is going to be there anyways.
Yes,
like
I know the Golden Saucer
it's different.
I just can't wait to see how much they flush out. That might be that might be a 15-hour part of the game in this version. You know what I mean? Oh, so for example, going back to the actual remake and discussing some of the things they expanded upon, there's the train graveyard part of the game. In the original, you're there for maybe 30 minutes. Like in
I thought that part was completely new. I actually didn't know.
So you do go to the train graveyard right before you go to the top of the sector that you stopped them from. Well, you try to stop them from taking Aerith, but they you find out that they have them. You do go through that part, but it's so quick in the original game. Like it's not long at all. They made it into a fucking entire storyline about dead children and like all of this other stuff that's also going on in the area.
Backstory, like
Was there a story justification for it in the original, or was it just a set piece and that's it?
I can't remember.
I don't remember 100%, but it did feel like it was just a set piece, like a means to an end to just get to the next part.
Yeah,
it didn't feel like they made it feel like a really big part of the game in a remake, though. Kenny, you want to say something?
Yeah, I will say another thing in terms of like Chris, you just said like I thought maybe that was completely new. I wanted to say I forgot to say this when we were talking about Roche. He was so well introduced, right? How we were saying like that's a completely new character. When he got introduced, I was like, damn, I don't remember him.
Me too.
Like he was done so well. I thought he was in the original game. I was like, damn, I don't even remember him. I was like, damn, am I crazy? And I went and like I'm googling him. I'm like, oh, he's not in the original
he's just
game.
not at all. And I
was just having so much fun that I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some really great
can't believe
cinematics.
like someone told me that Jesse and Wedge and Biggs were not nothing characters in the original.
There are a lot.
They seriously
wouldn't believe it.
But what's really cool about that, and like we already said it, but like a character like Roche, I fully believe. Just like as someone like I play like Dungeons and Dragons a lot. I know Ant plays that a lot. And when you DM and you create your own world, there's a lot of like effort you put into it that the players don't necessarily ever see. And if you read a lot of like developer interviews for people that make video games or whatever, there's effort that goes into the game that doesn't necessarily get seen by the player. So like how Chris was saying that like the guy said like this is the Final Fantasy that like he always saw in his head that he can finally show the players like that. Like Jesse, there's a lot of things about Jesse that always existed, but the players never saw it, right? This character Roche probably already existed, but he just didn't fit into the original game. There wasn't enough time or budget or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of aspects of the world that was always in like these people's heads, but they weren't able to like get it onto the page. And the fact that they have the extended universe or just like even things that didn't make it there and be able to fit it all in this product, and then you got part one, and then you have this fully expanded game. It really allows you to see the full breadth of what they're trying to do. Like in Breath of the Wild, I think I might have said this on the podcast before, but there's a part where you're going up to Zora's domain. And the way you get there and the whole way it looks, I remember like I had a light bulb moment and I was like, holy shit, this is what Miyamoto or Aonuma, like this is what they saw when they made Ocarina of Time. Like when you go to Zora's domain in Ocarina of Time, like this is what they wanted you to see. Right. Like it's the same thing, but like you see like they can now actually make it a much more grander vision. And shit like that is just so beautiful to see.
That train graveyard chapter is chapter 11 to be exact of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Chapter 11 blew me away, and some people apparently didn't like that chapter with the whole ghost and stuff. And I'm talking to Aerith, and like, it had 2 boss fights in it. You had the one in that control room that was really
that is the best music in the game, hands down. I don't care what anyone says. Ghoul, I think it's just called Ghoul.
I think it is just called Ghoul.
Ghoul is the best track in the game,
and that fight is wild.
That could be the final. That could be final boss music right there.
Yeah, Ghoul is fucking insane. That boss fight. Then you fight the other boss fight where it's like a Doom Caliber Knight, essentially like a horse and carriage.
Allegory.
Allegory. Yeah,
that one was hard.
That one is wild because he's like riding around the entire time and shit, and stabbing you with the lance. And then he has a stealable weapon that you can actually miss, right? It's like the bladed staff or something like that for Aerith. So it's like a missable weapon. It's one of the only things that you can miss in the entire game.
I stole the heck out of that.
Yeah. And see, that's another thing. If you know how to play RPGs correctly, you know that you have to have a party member with steel on at all times.
Of course.
You just can't go through an RPG without steel.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a really cool part of the game. Let's talk about so the weapon system. They have like, if you play Final Fantasy 13, you know about the Crystarium. And it's essentially just a spear grid, but the Crystarium looked the same exact way that the weapon upgrades look in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Weapon upgrades were not a thing in the original game. Like you had a weapon and it was just whatever slots it came with, whatever stats it came with, that was it. In the remake, they have like this entire system where you can choose using your SP or whatever it was called to kind of upgrade, like, oh, I can add HP plus 120 to this. I can add that, this move does this much more damage. Like it does 15% more damage. This will stagger. What'd you say?
Or a new materia slot.
A new material. Oh, that was so broken.
Or materia slot connector,
Yes, connecting the slots, which was insane to do. And magic attack plus this, strength plus this. So you could choose, like, I just want to buff my character up real high, or I want them to have higher HP so they're a tank like Barrett. Then it would have stuff that was like really broken, like Reprieve, where if you die in battle, you just survive 1 HP, like stuff like that too. And so seeing the weapon upgrade system, I think, was really cool. And also the fact that weapons outside of battle actually have the materia visible.
Yes. Oh my God, I loved that.
Yeah.
And then the weapons themselves look different outside of battle.
Yes.
Yeah. Every cutscene could look different depending on what weapons you have equipped. And I know the games have been doing that for a while, but still.
Because I'm a sucker for like keeping
the
all
originals
of the characters with the original equips.
You like the Kingdom Key,
and that's why I like the Kingdom Key. And I'm just like, man, like playing through Kingdom Hearts. I'm just like, all right, well, I am suffering with this Kingdom Key, but I will continue to suffer.
The cool thing is about Remake is that even the first weapon, like the Buster Sword, you can upgrade it to a point where it's competitive with the other weapons because all the weapons can upgrade so much. And as you get those, like, I think they're called volumes, right? It'll be like Way of the Fist Volume 3. And it'll make it where your weapons get an extra upgrade level. So like you'll upgrade the first section of it, because the way it looks like Crystarium for real from Final Fantasy 13, but it'll be like a section over here, and you can fill out everything over there, and then it's a section over here. You can fill out everything, and you can pick and choose, but a new section will be completely open to you once you get a volume. And like some of the volumes are only on hard mode. So you got to go through hard mode to get some of them. So like the Buster Sword becomes one of the strongest weapons in the game, even though it is your first weapon. It stays competitive with the last weapon that Cloud actually gets. I like that a lot. So that way people like Anthony, who are like, I want to use the Buster Sword to fight Sephiroth in the end. You can do that.
I'm going to only use the Buster. I can guarantee you.
And it won't.
Well, did you not use any of the other ones at all? Because I did. I used somewhere. Yeah, you get the skill. You can switch off it.
I got the skill, and then I switched back to the Buster Sword.
Yo, can we talk about the skills too? Triple Slice is wild.
Triple Slice is great. What's the one where you like switch stances with an attack?
Oh, so you have Punisher mode, but then you also have counter attack. Yeah, counter stance is broken.
Once you actually learn how to use that properly, you can. I didn't realize that like the combat system for Cloud specifically was as in depth as it was. Like, because if you counter like at the right time. So basically all counter stance does is it's an automatic version of like a manual ways to switch the stance. So if you like parry at the right time when you're blocking in Punisher mode, he will counter attack and then you can like switch the stance.
Yep.
And with counter stance, it just does it automatically. When I found that out, I started going through the game doing that like all the time.
Counter stance is probably the most broken ability in the entire game. It just, against the last boss, like against Sephiroth, it's so nuts against him. It's nuts against all the robots. It's just because you don't take damage either, and he hits hard as shit. Like Cloud swings back hard as hell, and it looks cool.
Yeah. I will say, I've been told I'm stupid for this before, but I became an Aerith main near the end.
Oh, well, don't worry. You're not the only one. Dual cast is wild.
Dual cast is some nonsense. Anyone that says otherwise is a moron.
When I first got her, so you know when you first get to play with her after you fall down on the flower bed and everything, y'all go through the slums together, like you're walking to her house and you fight enemies, you put down a little, first thing you do is you switch to the character that's new to the party. So I was like, okay, Cloud feels the best so far out of everybody, but let me just see how Aerith feels. And I switched to her, and at first I hated her. I was like, she feels so clunky. I didn't realize how to fight with her because I'm used to just walking up to an enemy. But no, you stand the fuck back, you put your little glyph on the ground, and then you start casting spells, and they come out twice. And I was like, no,
I couldn't believe how long. I was like, when is the dual cast going to fade away?
Yeah, it just doesn't go away. It's so dumb. And honestly, awesome. All of the abilities that she unlocks are broken. There's one where she puts a little shield in front of her.
Yes.
And it just like, they can't get past it.
Yeah. There's that like the little fairy one that like has a fairy that attacks every time you attack.
Yep.
That one was fine, but it was very cool. I liked it.
I like how you can hold the button for her too. Like when her attack button, it starts to charge up her base attack. And then she'll shoot like a really big one of those little fireball things that she shoots out, and it fills up her gauge gets filled up so fast compared to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, because especially if you swing those attacks in succession, like it's just
broken. Like that is one of the most broken characters easily. Like that's another thing I like how in the original every character is essentially the same outside of their limit breaks, right? Like they're theoretically all the same character, but in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I love that they all feel so outrageously different when you play with them. Like Barrett doesn't feel anything like Cloud, like Tifa, or like Aerith. They all feel so much different from one another. So when you're playing as them, it switches the way the game feels.
I'm just curious how, like, and you haven't played as Yuffie because Yuffie also, like, I was
Yuffie's gameplay is awesome.
Yuffie is insane.
It's so awesome.
Is it really?
Like,
it's so cool.
Yuffie does like some other shit that I wasn't even like. I didn't even realize for like the first.
I don't even know. Can we spoil it?
No, you can.
Because she has her ninja star, and then she also has ninjutsu. So she'll throw out the star, and then after she throws out the star, she can like cast different elemental ninjutsu at you. Okay. And they have like different effects, and then she can call back the star and attack with the star. And
so she feels again completely different from everyone else.
Yeah, so like you throw her star out, it turns into a drone. While it's a drone, your regular attack turns into a ranged magic attack, and then her skill tree lets you change the attribute of the attack.
Oh my God.
Each different attribute of attack has its own skill like combo tree, like based on when you hold down the attack button. And then whenever you call back the shuriken, you teleport to the shuriken and you start doing like aerial combos on the enemy, like on their head.
Oh, yeah, this sounds
it's all over the place. It's
like,
all over the place.
You can tell that they were working on Yuffie, and like they couldn't get her into the original game. So
right.
like,
same with Red 13. He joins as a guest at the end of the game, and you can't control him at all. I assume that at the beginning of the next game, you're probably gonna get to like immediately play with him. I also imagine you brought up Yuffie, and it's making me think of Red 13, the Cosmo Canyon part of the game, which is actually long in the original game. Like that part of the game it takes a while to go through Cosmo Canyon, and I can't wait to see what they do with Cosmo Canyon in the remake. Like there's so many things that when you first see Red 13's dad and like how he died and everything like that, he's like a statue.
Red 13's dad.
Yes.
Oh, you know what I just thought of that's not going to happen?
Oh yeah.
Dude, they should add, when the whole game's done, right? This is pure copium. When the whole game's done, they should add a final DLC and let you play through as a video game the events of Advent Children. That'd be so
sick.
There's no way they don't do that. There's actually no. I watched Advent Children.
So
I watched the heck out of Advent Children.
I actually love Advent Children. Like for me, that movie is still so ahead of its time, and I really would love to play a video game of that. That's just running the Final Fantasy VII Remake engine for Advent Children.
Honestly,
there's no way they don't, because it's like the conclusion to the actual story, right? Like
yeah.
Honestly, I feel like because the fight between Tifa and whatever one of the clones' names was, I forgot. Like when I saw that fight, I was like, "Fucking Tifa!" I was like,
the music too.
So like when I played the remake and I first played as Tifa, like everyone who watched me stream, they can attest to it. I was like, I'm only playing as Tifa from now on.
She is broken, by the way.
So fun.
She is fucking broken.
Because that is essentially what I wanted watching Advent Children. I was like, damn, I wish that I could like have played as Tifa like that in Final Fantasy VII.
She's also entirely too fast.
Remake, you get to do it. And I was like, oh, this is like, she's fucking insane.
And she feels different.
If you map like her special attacks to like the quick map buttons, you can like string together her attacks in a way that like you can like do attack and then like the uppercut and then drop kick immediately.
Yes.
And that is like one of my all-time favorites.
I like the fact that her attacks do combo blatantly into each other. I also like that she can build up that percentage thing really fast, like faster than anyone else. And she does that thing where she can charge up her fist and then they get red. And like you get to the last part, and you can and you can kind of like start to use it in a way and kind of bring it back down levels if you fire off the really strong hits. But she has a really unique fighting system too, and they're just going to keep expanding on these characters' fighting systems, which is really cool. Like when you put, for example, elemental materia and then like thunder, her gauntlets become energized with electricity.
Oh yes.
So she's fucking punching, and there's like electricity on all her punches.
Or fire, so cool. Or ice, or wind.
Yep, it looks so cool. Just that little detail, those details.
He's like Star Shower. I would just on random anime. I switched to Tifa just to watch her do Star Shower. I was like, I want to see the animation again. Yeah.
Have you ever seen it in like slow motion?
Did you do Star Shower to an aerial? Did you ever do Star Shower on an aerial?
Of course
enemy?
I have.
Yeah, her Star Shower isn't a set trajectory. It just it figures out a new trajectory every time you use it. It's so crazy.
You said I've seen it in slow motion?
Yeah, like do Star Shower
and then like go into the menu. Yeah.
And
I think I have done that.
Which is something that I love about that, like the slowing down of the menu is when you because normally when you do something like that, when you do like a special, like a finishing move or something, they'll say something. And when you go into the menu, and like it goes into slow-mo and they're in the middle of saying something, like there's like an echo.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was like really neat.
Yeah, Star Shower is crazy.
Like, just looking at the animation of her going slow is like, what?
Also, the limit breaks, and everyone only gets 2, but they are nuts in this game too. Like Cloud Ascension. When I first got Ascension, I was like, "What the fuck was that?"
So if you, because don't you first get it around the time that you fight Rufus?
I think so.
Ascension?
Yeah.
So if you finish Rufus with Ascension, Cloud like goes to do it, and he's like, "Let's dance, asshole."
Yes. Oh my god, when he said that, bro,
like, that's so hot.
bro, me and Gary were popping off. He was like, "Let's go, asshole." I was like, "Yo, that part got me." And then the way he finishes off with Clem Hazard, like the end of Ascension is him ascending. I was like, "That's so fucking cool." They didn't blatantly call it Clem Hazard because he beats your ass first, but it's just really cool to see. It's really cool to see how he ends it off with the Clem Hazard. It does so much damage. Yeah, all of the second ones, like for whatever reason, this is really confusing to me too. But Barrett's second limit break that you get is blatantly his last limit break in the original game. So Catastrophe, where he like jumps up in the air and shoots down a gigantic energy beam, that's his level 4 limit break in the original game. You don't get it until close to the end of the game, of course, and they just gave it to him already in fucking Midgar. So I'm like, what are they going to do with these limit breaks? Like, I'm sure Cloud's still going to end up with Omni Slash at the end because
they're going to be cracked. They're going to get some
Omni Slash, because Omni Slash is a part of the story too.
Yeah, you can't get Omni Slash until the end.
Yeah, it's part of the story. Like, it's not even just. Yeah. It's not like one of those.
Well, you know how they like to give Omni Slash versions. They might give you like proto, like Omni Slash proto or something.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. No, you're right.
We're getting the final one.
Omni Chop, Omni Slice, and then Omni Slash.
On the topic of Omni Slash, I watched a 3-hour freaking lore theory video front to back of Final Fantasy VII Remake. And apparently that scene at the end where right before Sephiroth says 7 seconds to the end, when they have like a regular fight animation.
Yeah.
Apparently Cloud is doing Omni Slash in that animation if you watch it closely.
Oh shit.
He does Omni Slash, and then you can see Sephiroth like basically stepping out of the way of every attack because he's seen it before.
Oh my god. That's too much.
That's what they're like. You can literally match up his movements. It is Omni Slash, and Sephiroth has just seen Omni Slash before.
Oh my god, yo! I'm not ready for what's to come because that part, I know what you're talking about. It's the CG scene where they're both fighting, and I remember I couldn't believe how well that part came out because I thought they were going to keep the fight relatively grounded, but there's a part where Cloud starts flash stepping. Blatantly.
Yeah.
Like you literally see Cloud running up, like he gets angry. So Sephiroth makes him very angry. And he starts running towards him and he goes left teleport, right teleport. And I was like, yo, what the fuck is going on?
What is that?
And then he appears behind Sephiroth and his sword, like it starts to come to Sephiroth's neck and Sephiroth just puts his sword behind his back like this.
He's seen it all before.
Yo, the way he just blocks the attack by putting his sword on his own back like that, I was like, this guy is too calm in every situation. Like, you should not. But now that you're telling me this, Chris, that like basically it's because he's seen what's going to happen. He's blocking everything. He's dodging everything because he already knows how this goes.
Yeah. Sephiroth is Aaron Yeager. He's
yes, that's what it's giving me.
Honestly, but that's why, like, when I was playing through it and people were like in the chat, like, "Oh, how are you fighting Sephiroth already? You're not supposed to be fighting him and all this shit. And this isn't really a true remake." And I'm like, "Bro, shut the fuck up. This is dope." Right. Like, I'm like, "This is dope. Yeah. What do you want? This is cool."
It really is. You don't want a true remake. You just you don't actually want that.
That's true though. The piggyback on what you said earlier, like to talk about Pokemon. The Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes are the worst remakes they've ever done for Pokemon because they've tried to do quote-unquote like faithful remakes and they honestly just feel lazy and cheap and they're not all that interesting. Whereas Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire or Heart Gold Soul Silver, they're remakes, but they're more celebration games and they take what the original games were and like push them further. And those games are so well regarded and talked about very fondly years and years after they came out. Heart Gold Soul Silver was on the DS. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire was on the 3DS. But Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, this is how they're looked at now. And going into the future, how they'll only ever be talked about is how much of a missed opportunity they are and how, like, yeah, whatever, they were just like what they are. Like, they're good games because Diamond and Pearl were good games, but they're not good games because it's like you could just play Diamond and Pearl.
Right.
Like, they're useless remakes.
Yeah, you can't just say I'll just play Final Fantasy VII as opposed to remake. They're not. It's not the same.
Yeah.
There's not a substitute for, I can just play the old one. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and there's something always to be said with like, there's something to be said for like, you develop a game for the technology that you have at that moment. And if you let the limitations of 27 years ago or whatever limit your remake, it's just a wait. Why would you?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I already played FF7. I love FF7, but I already played it. I don't. If I want to, I can play it again.
Yeah,
I can play FF7, right?
I will. So, I mean, I'm going to at some point.
The remake, what they did with the remake was so interesting because we've talked about how to change the story, but they fleshed out all of the different things, and I don't know. It's just really enjoyable. Like, like Fraser was saying. Barrett, for example, in FF7, like, when you press attack, he shoots his gun, but, like, he is essentially just a DPS character. Like, he's an RPG character, but when you play as Barrett in FF7 Remake, you're getting a whole different play experience.
He feels very different than everybody else, too.
If I play through the game and it's like, I want to be a Barrett main or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I'll play through most of that game, and the situations where I can use Barrett, it's like, I always use Barrett. I'm going to have a different play experience than somebody's like, well, I'm always going to use Cloud, or I'm always going to use...
a very, very different experience, because Barrett is meant to kind of stay back. And especially, the good thing is Barrett has two types of weapons. He can use ranged weapons, or he can use the like cannonball, scissor type weapons too, which is really cool that he's one of the only characters that has that option. He fights completely different depending on what you have equipped. But in the beginning of the game and for a long time of the game, Barrett is the character when something is far away that Cloud can't really reach easily. He just stands back and shoots it. And then he can also like power shot it. His limit break in the original game, he can just do that. Like he just fucking power shot. And it's really cool. That's the thing.
The whole way they introduce him in the remake is like, there's like some shit on the wall.
Yeah.
I can't get to it. And Barrett's like, pop.
Leave shit to me. Yeah, it's really, and then later on you start to realize his role, because he has the most HP in the party. He has the most defense, so he can really tank hits. And he has a move where he has an ability where he will take hits blatantly. It's like cover, essentially. But he will take hits. Yeah, exactly. It buffs him, and it makes it where he takes more hits. So he has a specific role, and like Tifa is so fast that no enemy can catch her in the game. So like her run speed in battle is the fastest out of anyone, and she cannot be caught. And it's insane how fast she moves. So she could
so satisfying.
And she could back attack every enemy, and back attacks actually matter. Like going behind an enemy and attacking them does more damage and everything. So and it staggers them quicker. Speaking of which, we didn't even mention that, but like the combat system, like the whole stagger thing, and like when this says pressured, like that's new too. That's completely new. That wasn't a thing before. But if you stagger an enemy, they basically can't act for a while, and they take a shit ton more damage.
Which they picked that up from 13, I believe.
Yes,
13
that is taken straight from 13, but just done way better. And you basically, if you know the monster's weakness, so like everyone knows when you fight any robotic monster, use thunder on it of some sort, either through your weapon or have an elemental material equipped or just actually casting bolt. And that shit will put up their stagger. I mean, sometimes it staggers them immediately. Like that shit might just stagger them off of one bolt. Like, this monster, this robot just crashed down. When you fight that one thing in the beginning of the game, it's that one robotic. It has like the two arms that are cannons essentially. And it's like on the legs like conveyor belts that kind of moves it around. You guys know what I'm talking about probably. It's like yellow and black. But you fight that thing and you just use bolt against it and it immediately staggers, and you just go up to it and use braver a couple times, and that shit's slight work. But yeah, I love that. Also, that first boss fight against the Scorpion is wild in a remake. It's so cinematic. Like in the original, it actually feels pretty cool too, because like, it's preparing its tail laser, and it like lifts the tail laser up, and like if you attack it, it'll counter attack, right, and do that laser move that does a shit ton of damage. When I was younger, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to attack when it does that. But like in the new one, it still does that, but they made a cinematic where it jumps out of the battle and starts crawling against the walls and shooting missiles down that you actually have to actively dodge the missiles that are like about to crash down on your platform. Then it does the thing where it's preparing the laser. You guys have to take cover behind some debris and like wait for the laser to pass and then like run back out there and attack it. Like all of that shit is just, it makes the boss fights way more cinematic, and just
the game feels a lot more cinematic. The action sequences paired with the RPG mechanics. Honestly, that's like something I really love. Like action games are fun. I love RPG games, but when you really get a game that can pair like an action game system with RPG mechanics, like at least for me, like I get a lot out of that. I know some people like hate RPG mechanics and they just want pure action games. That's not really me. Like you pair those mechanics together, oh my god.
That's part of what makes Kingdom Hearts so great. And I like that they took some of that from Kingdom Hearts. Like you'll be fighting a boss in Kingdom Hearts, and then out of nowhere it'll say press triangle to do the react, and then that'll just cause a cinematic to happen. And now you're like doing this little mini game essentially that like changes the entire dynamic of the fight, and then the boss might evolve from that point. And
what's also great is that like this doesn't, because I remember when Final Fantasy 15 was about to come out and they were showing stuff about it, and people were like, "Oh, Final Fantasy is just going to become Kingdom Hearts," and a lot of people were bitching about that.
I did see that.
And
I remember that.
I cannot tell you how different Final Fantasy VII Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3 are.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not even the same.
Final Fantasy 15 had to, I guess, collapse so that Final Fantasy 7 Remake could run, but
yeah, that was definitely the trial run for this game. I feel like when you really look at the systems that they use, they're so similar, but Remake just corrected a lot of things that were wrong. Like how you always talk about the slowdown mechanic where you're choosing an option.
Oh, it's so good. It's so, because things are still, because like in the original, right? Things are still happening while you're deciding what to do.
You can take damage while it's happening. It's not like it just completely stops it.
Exactly. But you know, it's still giving you an ample amount of time to strategize and be like, right, that's what I'm going to do next. You know, so it's all so well done, and I can't say how, like, playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and then playing playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake, they're completely different games. You know, like.
Yeah, they don't feel the same at all.
Kingdom Hearts is definitely it's more of an action game than Final Fantasy is. Like, it has RPG mechanics that it pairs in, but it's definitely more of an action game.
More tactile, and yeah.
And I like, so another cool thing that wasn't in the original, but you fight the big bomber, right? The one that destroys the bridge and makes Cloud fall. But before you get to it, there's like this whole section of the game where you're going through the Shinra facility, the reactor, and you're choosing how you want to fuck on this robot in the boss fight later on, which to someone who's never played the game before, like Chris, you never played the original, that part was just like, okay, I'm just choosing what I don't want to go against. But for me, who I know his most dangerous attack is Big Bomber. So as I'm going and choosing what do you want to take away from the fucking robot, I'm like, oh, bombshell. Like, I just immediately took the bombshell.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. In that part, I was just like, man, I was going to pick some nonsense. Like, I didn't care.
It matters.
I didn't think hard about it.
It matters. Like, technically, it doesn't matter which one you choose technically, because you're going to beat it regardless, I assume. But, like, if I'm thinking about, in the original, I remember the one attack that it did that just did way too much damage was, like, it was the Big Bomber attack, essentially. And you just take that shit away. Or you could be like, I want a challenge and leave it. And, you know, there you go. But I like the fact that you could fuck on that robot with key cards. And you had to find them, too. It was optional.
Yeah.
It was completely optional. You could actually just speed run that facility and not get any of the key cards if you wanted to, or not use them. You could choose to just not use them and just go fight the boss at full power. But I thought that was cool. And then obviously when you fight it, in the original game, they split up Cloud's on one side and Barrett and Tifa, I believe, are on the other side of the robot. And as you fight it, it'll switch who it's attacking. It's the same exact way in a remake, which I thought was cool. Like in a remake, you guys are kind
of... that's crazy. There's so many little ways where, like, the game interacts with players that have played the original Final Fantasy VII. The game holds up, for me, holds up super well, even if you don't have that. But when I talked to you, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize they were doing that. I didn't even realize that happened.
It's done very well. It's a game that works very, very well for new players. They can enjoy it without feeling overwhelmed. You can enjoy the game without feeling like you need to play the original 7. Like, you don't need to play 7 to enjoy that game.
You don't.
And then if you played 7, it just also gives you additional things to enjoy. Yeah. Something I wanted to sort of ask real quick for both Chris and Ant. What's like something that we haven't talked about, but like something about FF7 Remake that, because I know both of you guys like. I know Chris was saying, like, I can talk about this game forever. I want to talk, like, what's something that you really want to geek out about FF7? Just like to highlight, geek out about something about the game, and we can, make it a quick topic. Is there anything?
I'm trying to think of something we haven't talked about.
We haven't talked about
covered a lot.
At all.
I mean, my thing is, it's something that we've talked about. It's essentially the entire end where they confirm that yes, this is a requel. This is not a 1-to-1 remake of Final Fantasy VII. Because when they're like basically like inside of like all of that chaos, and they start getting memories.
Yes,
they start getting memories of things that they have yet to experience.
Yes.
You as the audience have experienced before. And then especially when they started pulling shit in from Advent Children, I was like, whoa, what? Like, I don't know if like people noticed, but some of those memories were from Advent Children.
Huh.
And I was like, that's insane.
That's promising, because they might actually make a game out of it. That might become, after we're done Final Fantasy VII Remake, however many episodes this is going to be, maybe Advent Children will be the next progression. Because people will play it. It's not if you play every other episode. It's like I'm not going to stop there if they're going to make more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole
but something that oh, what?
No, I was just saying that whole Arbiters of Fate part just like really it really like brought me into it.
Yo, those three are the fucking three clones, right?
Yeah, I don't remember what episode of the podcast that was, but we were talking about this.
And something, I forget the other one's name.
The three, I don't remember if it gets confirmed in game or not. I think we looked it up, but I don't remember.
Yeah, when you look it up, though, they use the same weapons and everything.
When I saw Ant play through it, I was like, holy shit! Like I was like, I think those are the only name I ever remember is Kadash. I always forget the other
Kadash, Laws, and Yazoo. I think are their names, something like that.
But yeah, I was like, those are the three. Like those are from like those Phantoms. They're like red, blue, and green, or red, blue, and yellow, right?
Yeah, red, blue.
Oh, like those things.
Yeah, they're from,
and they fused to make Bahamut
fight. And yes, yeah,
because Bahamut.
Like just as someone that's made multiple D&D campaigns and like run stories to tell, having like your main villain go to a different timeline and change it, it's such a cool concept.
It is a cool concept. It's dangerous, but it's cool if you do it right.
And that's just this thing, you got to do like the time shenanigans right, and it seems like right.
The 3-hour video I watched basically just hammered in the point that the live stream is memories, right? In the first place, the live stream is all memories in the sense of like the memories of like Destiny itself, right? Everything that's ever happened is contained in the live stream already. So I think I have this concept in my head. The way that I've been looking at it is just that like all Final Fantasy VII media before this game were us in the live stream, and we are now out of the live stream. And this is the first real set of like, this is the real timeline or whatever. Like that's my take on it, just so I have something to justify it with, but that's what I've been thinking about, how I've been thinking about it.
I like that they showed a flash of Cloud holding Aerith's body and like dipping her in that river or wherever he leaves her at when she dies in the original game. They do a flash. There's like a lot of quick flashes at the end of the game where he's fighting against Sephiroth, but that's one of them, and I was like, oh shit.
Those are new, right? Oh yeah, are those new? Were those like from other games later that had like better quality cutscenes?
No, that's from Advent Children. That was okay. So specifically was something they lifted from Advent Children, but in Advent Children it was like
but it's a new cutscene. Yes. It's not like a rip.
It's not a 1-to-1.
It's not like a rip from that. Yeah, it is a new cutscene in engine.
Yeah.
But it is based on things that we have seen before.
Yes, like we know that does actually happen. Of course, it hasn't happened yet in the game, but they completely remade the scene for Remake. Like,
that's what makes it so interesting, because the biggest, the most heartbreaking part of Final Fantasy VII is that Aerith dies.
Yeah, everyone knows that Aerith dies.
But like in the context of the game, she had to die in order to defeat Sephiroth and stop Meteor. And
she had to become one with the live stream, and then she used that.
But this does really make you question, like, is there going to be a way to stop Sephiroth, Meteor, Jenova
without her being
Aerith having to die?
Also, did they mention her materia that's like in her hair at all yet?
Yes, they do. They mentioned it once. And I remembered it because as someone that's never played it, it was very, very weird. But like at once she literally points to her ponytail and says, like, I have a material up here that my mom gave me, but it doesn't do anything. And then they just move on. I was like, why? What the heck? And they never brought it up. Because I was waiting the whole game for them to say something about it. They just never said anything about it. I was like, okay, whatever. And whatever. I don't know. It wasn't in that 3-hour video. I don't know what it
That's good to know. That is good to know.
Something that's interesting, I can't remember because it's been since the game came out, since I saw the cutscenes. I don't remember specifically. Do you guys remember when Sephiroth shows up and with all the whispers? I can't remember what the conclusion is. Does he kill the whispers? Does he absorb the whispers? Because I remember that was a big talking point as to like going forward to part 2. Like some people thought that Sephiroth absorbs the whispers, and so he's going to be in more control of the timeline.
I think that he absorbs them.
Or some people thought he just straight up killed the Whispers so that they can't interfere with him changing the timeline.
Either way is bad.
I thought it was the latter because like they are essentially the guardians of the timeline.
Right. They're making sure that shit happens the way it's supposed to.
And
Zack being alive. Zack being alive is supposed to be the symbol of the timeline being just completely screwed. right?
I saw that cutscene as a huge Zack simp. I saw that cutscene and I was just like, I'm still, until like future parts of the game comes out, I'm not gonna let myself believe he's actually alive.
Oh no, intergrade.
Well, I just need, until I get actual proof. I haven't seen any intergrade yet.
Zach,
but
there's a cutscene. There's a Zack cutscene in intergrade.
Good, but I've seen, because in the original game there's a Zack cutscene that sort of hints at him still being alive, and I was just like, oh man, I can't. I gotta keep it half chub. I'm not gonna get too hard.
If you eventually play intergrade or like watch a playthrough of it or something, there is a much more concrete second cutscene with Zack, which I guess could still be a dream sequence. It's hard to say, honestly.
I'm pretty sure it's not, only because so remember, you're going through the game and you see like those those tags of like the dog, the hound, Avalanche brings it up. It's you. No one knows what I'm talking about.
I forget. I didn't play this
dog that's on.
You're too into it. I can't follow it.
You keep saying. I just keep thinking of Dog Street, which is like one of the go-to clothing brands in Square Enix games.
So like the first time you see it, I think, or the first time it's brought up, is when you are underneath like the and you're in like the sector tunnels and you're on your way to go. I forgot. And
isn't it tunnels where you have to play those stupid mini game kind of with the arms that move and they lift up the.
No,
not that one.
It's where they get separated and like they have to go.
Where Barrett is shooting boxes above you to get items.
Okay. Yeah, and I think Barrett brings up the fact that there's like these like graffiti tags of this dog, and I'm pretty sure it's like a helmet.
Vaguely.
I do. I know what you're talking about.
So if you notice throughout the game, you see the same style of like the art of the dog in the helmet, but in the cutscene at the end with Zack, it's like on a piece of paper or something like that. It's the same tag, but it's like a different dog. Like it's like drawn differently, as if to indicate it's the same thing, but in a different timeline.
How dare you notice a thing like that? How could you do this? What's wrong with you?
So I'm pretty sure that like definitively like says like, yes, it's the same. It's like, it's Zack from a different timeline, not Zack from
None of us are ready for Nibelheim's flashback in the remake. I'm just letting y'all know that now. We are not ready. We are not ready. We are fucking not ready. Like all of that part where Sephiroth loses his shit and goes evil for the first time when he's in that library reading about Genova and how she came to the planet and they experimented on her and misused her and all that shit. And he starts losing his mind, talking crazy. And Cloud's like, well, not Cloud, but Cloud is like, what the fuck are you doing? You burned down the village. Like, you killed all these people, and Tifa's there and you pull her out of a burning house and all that. Like that entire sequence, when you see it in Unreal Engine, is going to look phenomenal. Also that music that they play.
There's no way the biggest twist of the series of the remake isn't in there. Like something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
With Sephiroth. That's because like the basically every time a key moment has happened in the original, Sephiroth has done something to mess it up, right?
Oh,
like that's because that's what he's doing. So he's for sure targeting that moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he knows that that's the one he has to change.
That's the other thing that's very exciting, is that this remake. What they've done with it is they've made it exciting for people that have already played FF7, because now we don't know what's going to happen.
We have
either.
No idea,
and that's really exciting. Like, on addition to, because usually it's just exciting. I'm excited to see this in new graphics or whatever, right? Like it's cool. It'll have voice acting, whatever. Yep. But now it's like I'm excited to see what happens, because even though I know the plot, I don't know the plot.
Yeah, and what's cool is that they actually play to us too, the people who do know what happens in the other game, because they give us still a lot of the game is still stuff that we do know. Like Golden Saucer will be in the game, Cosmo Canyon will be in the game, the beach area that you go to, or the submarine part of the game where like Red 13. Did someone
say beach area? Never mind.
Yeah, there's a beach area, and then there's a part where Red 13's and a costume of somebody who's in the Navy, right? Like he's standing on 2 feet because he's a fox, or not a fox, but he's a dog. And he's like standing on his hind legs and he's like wobbling because he's trying to pretend like he's a human. It's like a really funny part in the game. They'll probably figure out a way to incorporate that, or maybe not. But the fact that we know that there may be, because you fight Jenova on that ship.
Like, a mini game where you balance a dog.
Oh man, fuck that fight with Jenova on the ship.
Where
but anyway.
Sephiroth just comes out of nowhere and he's like, all right, deal with this.
Oh man, I fucking hate that fight so. Yes. Like imagine being like a 12-year-old and doing that fight, and you're just like,
out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, it's like Jenova life, Jenova death, Jenova birth. You fight all those different forms of Jenova, and Sephiroth just trolls you throughout the series. He comes out of nowhere, and he's like, all right, deal with this version of Jenova now. Also, in the original game, he like kills President Shinra and like leaves his sword in his back when you find him in the original game. And in the remake, I know he stabs Barrett, but I forget President Shinra. What ends up happening to him? Like,
he gets stabbed by Sephiroth.
He does,
because remember. So you come up into that whole part of following like the trail of Jenova juice.
Yeah.
Just like it had such an ambiance to it.
Yeah. But very scary shit.
You get there, he's hanging from like the ledge, and then you save him, and then Sephiroth's like, I kill him.
Yes. Yes, I forgot that Sephiroth shows up right there as well, and then that's when his son comes, right, and then you have to fight him and his dog. Yeah, that fight scene. Really,
that was the best. That was my favorite fight in the game.
Each of Rufus's legs has its own trench coat bottom. What the heck is going on with him?
Wait,
he came out with
Rufus's design is 3 trench coats at the same time.
He's the man. Real quick, on that note of Nibelheim, have you guys seen the like Final Fantasy anime? It's an OVA. It's like 1 episode OVA. The Final Fantasy Last Order.
I've seen it.
Where, dude, oh my god! So you said you've seen Advent Children. If I remember correctly, it kind of came out with a special or a limited edition of Advent Children. You can just find it on the internet somewhere.
Yeah,
but it's called Final Fantasy Last Order. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Last Order, and it's an anime. And it is the events like right after Nibelheim, and I would definitely suggest just checking out watching it. It's really, really cool. But that's just like another thing, like seeing all those events and seeing how that's going to be done here in this game is very, very exciting. Like, because if I remember, like what happens in that OVA, you don't necessarily see those events in the original game. And so like if they bring that into the remake, like that's really exciting to see.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's been so much Final Fantasy media between Crisis Core, pre-Crisis, after Crisis, all the whatever Crisis is, and then Dirge of Cerberus, and like I probably have to just replay original Final Fantasy VII just to like make sure that my memories of what is what don't get mixed up.
All right, just as long as you don't have to replay Dirge of Cerberus, all right?
I know.
You can just look at cutscenes.
I think Intergrade has Dirge of Cerberus characters. I think I was looking up where these characters in Intergrade came from.
Well, I want to tell you,
because Dirge of Cerberus is a Vincent.
Am I wrong?
Dirge of Cerberus is one of the worst games I've ever played.
Never played it before. I skipped it. It got terrible reviews, and I was like, "This is some sauce." I like Vincent as a character. Don't get me wrong. But I was like, I just do not feel like spending at the time when it first came out like $50 or whatever on this game. I just wasn't.
That's at Crisis Core.
Where did those light and dark guys come
I love
from?
Crisis Core. Bahamut and Crisis Core look so. The gold Bahamut. Oh my god.
Well, also, are they gonna make because Yuffie's an optional character in the original, right?
She is optional in the original. Yes, they both. Yes,
what does that mean? Like you can play the whole game without getting it at all?
Yes, you can. You can skip both of those characters. You can skip Vincent and Yuffie.
So is Vincent and Yuffie going to be optional?
Nah, I don't think they will though. Because so Intergrade already being a thing, and like Yuffie being the main character using Intergrade, and also the amount of detail that goes into how the characters play.
They'll be damned.
Yeah, they'll be damned. But also how fleshed out the story is and how integral they're making these characters and like being able to see these different perspectives. 1,000,000%, I don't think there's going to be optional party members. I think all of the characters are going to be worked into the game and they will be mandatory because their perspectives and the story that they give is like
that's true.
That's kind of the point of the game. Like they want you to see and experience all of this. So I don't think they'll be optional.
The reason I can't believe that like Jesse and Biggs and Wedge weren't huge characters before is because like they foil Cloud so well and they like add so much to Cloud himself as a character that it's hard to believe that Cloud even worked as a character without them doing what they did. Well, I guess he did anyways, but like it's crazy.
There's a section of the remake where you go to one of their house, right?
Yeah. You go to all their houses. You go to like Biggs it's like sweeping in front of his house because he's too nervous and like
that shit is really cool to me that you actually get to see their living arrangements.
You know, you owe me a pizza date.
Yep.
Dude,
and then she dies and she's like, you sold me that pizza date.
We're gonna save her. We're gonna save her, dude. When we saw
Biggs alive, is it only Biggs?
Because at the end of the game, you see Biggs like wake up and you're like, oh shit, there's a chance. There's a chance, baby.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the future of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Whatever they're going to do with this, I'm just wondering how many parts it's going to take because we only did the first 6 hours of the game.
How many discs are there in the original?
Yeah, 3, right?
So probably there'll probably be 3 parts.
If they make me buy a PS6, I will scream. I'll scream out loud. You'll hear me from wherever you are.
I'm with you on that. If I have to buy, if the generations change while this shit is still ongoing, I will be mad.
You'll hear us. You'll hear a scream from the distance. You'll say, "That's Chris finding out he has to buy a PS6 for $4,000 or whatever the scalpers are selling it for."
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just like I haven't bought the PS4 version. I just like I said, I watched Ant play it. I think for me, like for FF7 Remake, like I'm only buying the PC versions, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not buying 4 different consoles.
So I'm actually a little mad about the fact that the Intergrade only came out on PS5 and PC because I play Final Fantasy VII Remake on my PlayStation 4 and
you can skip it. If you buy the PC version, there's a button all the way at the beginning that's just like skip to the freaking DLC. Okay. Nothing carries over anyway, so you can play the DLC.
They're independent of one another.
What Fraser's saying is that it's annoying that
it's still annoying.
Like,
yes,
he played FF7 Remake and like he's going to have to play the next one and even Intergrade. It's like a whole different because Intergrade, like okay, for part 2, I understand it's like because FF7 Remake came out at the end of the PS4's life. I get that part 2 is going to be on the PS5, but Intergrade is like a DLC. So why wouldn't it be on PS4?
Like it's attached to Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first part. That's what kind of gets me. Like I'm like, okay.
It's because like at the end of the day, when people were complaining that splitting it up into 3 parts is a cash grab, they're right? Like this game is being structured as a cash grab. That's but they need the cash. They need it. Look at what they made.
Not only that,
that is true.
I was about to say this doesn't feel like you gave me just Midgar and padded it out. It genuinely does not feel like that. It just feels like you enhanced the story and gave me way more details that actually do matter in like character development. I'm never mad at character development. Like,
I was annoyed. I was annoyed when I found out it was like just part 1, just Midgar when I first heard about it, because in my head I was like, y'all really going to make me wait 5 years to give me 8 hours? Like for real? Like FF7 Remake finally got made and you're just giving me Midgar?
Right.
But then when I realized that they gave you a 40 to 60 hour game in Midgar and they expanded the life of that world so much, it's like, oh, this is fucking amazing. I want every game to do this.
Yes, I legit would not mind remakes of other games done in this fashion. Go ahead, Anthony.
The reason why Kenny feels that way is because, on a daily basis, you're just kind of like, fuck you, Square Enix, because I know that on a daily basis, I'm like, fuck you, Square Enix. This game is one of the few instances that I'm like, all right, I'll give you a break today.
I would fuck you to most companies, man.
Yes. If you live long enough, you will be fuck you to most companies.
Especially Square Enix. Square Enix is at the top of my list of fuck yous because they just do what there's a lot that they do.
I've been on fuck you to Capcom, Nintendo, Apple, Sony, Microsoft, like literally everybody.
Yeah. And at times like this, Square Enix is not the reason this happened, right? It's like the director in them probably like forcing Square Enix to let them do it in the first place. Like if anything, Square Enix probably tried to stop it a couple times, I would assume, because that's usually how like development of a new like something, just a new product works. Someone just says like, well, why don't you do it this way? That would make us more money. You have to keep proving why you shouldn't.
Bad optics. It's bad optics. Bad optics.
Like at the end of the day, like God, they did something really.
I'm just glad that all the people that complain about things being remade that are like sacred and trying to stop them from being remade. I'm glad that their voices just fell on deaf ears because this actually turned out phenomenal. I know
it's interesting because even like,
I know a lot of stuff that more so with movies, when they get remade, it's always bad, or they get rebooted. It's like, God, you could have left this where, like, leave Coming to America alone, right? Like, a lot of reboots are just atrocious. So I get the fear of having something so sacred as Final Fantasy VII being remade. Like, the same thing if they said they were going to do a remake of Ocarina of Time, you're going to have a lot of people who are like, absolutely not, right? Like, people are going to, that's just a gut reaction. It's like, I don't want that.
That's the thing, though.
That's what's lovely about Nintendo, or specifically the Zelda part of Nintendo, is that they will never remake Ocarina of Time, because if you notice, but like an actual remake of it, not
a remaster,
like a port,
yeah.
But they'll never remake Ocarina of Time, because if you notice, every single Zelda game is vastly different from itself. It's like every new, well, I would say kind of slightly with the exclusion of Twilight Princess, but like every single Zelda game is like its own identity. And like they're so vastly like different from what the previous one did, that like you can tell that every time they make a new Legend of Zelda entry, it's like a new idea. Like as far as like how the game is going to be played and so on and so forth.
The thing that sucks about, like, when you look at remakes, like the Lion King remake was terrible, right? Like the quote unquote live action, because it's not even live action, first of all. Like, it's all CG. It's just really, 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 really good, almost photoreal CG. But the quote unquote live action Lion King is terrible. It's shot for shot Lion King, the animated movie, but with no color and no facial animation, no expression. It's just boring. And then, like, I don't know, I guess Beyonce's a voice actor, and that's cool. But
no, man,
really.
It's just like
everyone knew.
It's boring. Whereas like the FF7 remake, or if they've remade Ocarina of Time, if they really went balls deep and like did some and they made Hyrule fucking huge. Like if they remade Ocarina of Time and made it like as big as Breath of the Wild, I'm like, all right, well, let's go. But no one's going to do that. They're
not starved for ideas.
I don't want it.
Yeah, and no one's really asking for it.
The problem is Final Fantasy VII Remake was necessary because Final Fantasy games have been pretty shit lately. If we're being completely honest, there hasn't been a good Final Fantasy to the point where, like, I think Anthony and I share the sentiment, but like Square Enix has just been not doing it for me for a while. I played 15 and the game was awful. If I'm being completely honest and objective, that game just was not a good game. It was cool that the main character Noctis was basically the fourth Hokage from Naruto, but like, after you get over the whole luster of him throwing his weapon and teleporting to it, it's like, what is this? What is the story being told here? I still, to this day, don't know what the storyline of 15 was.
I said this to Fraser before. Final Fantasy 15 is like, if somebody played a good game called Final Fantasy 15 and then remade the entire game from memory after only playing it one time, that's the game we played.
Now,
like, I see.
I will not ever jump on the Final Fantasy 15 was a terrible game, because, mainly because everybody else jumps on it and says it's a terrible game. Like, objectively, it is not a good game. However, there is a good game in there.
That's what I feel too.
There's
a
good game.
Good
game in Final Fantasy.
It has everything in
there.
And it is.
And I knew when they brought up the cosmology of the world, and I was like, so someone made gods for this world. Like, the story's not there? And then I started looking into the development process, and I was like, oh, that's because this game got fucked on development-wise.
Yeah, it got so many times.
Bro, do you remember those original trailers?
Definitely.
Oh my god, the one where he's jumping through the like falling building, he's going through the hallways
there
and
were
stuff.
the original trailers for what it was called Versus 13.
Yes.
The original trailers for 15 are insane. Like, Noctis was on some shit in the original trailers.
The original female character doesn't even exist anymore. In the original FF Versus 13/15 trailers, I forget her name, but it's a completely different character that's like the female for Noctis.
Yeah.
And then when 15 came out, it's a different person, different name. It's just completely different. Like they changed so much. It's so interesting how much that game's identity changed. Like, I would love to, how we got the Snyder cut for Justice League?
Yeah.
I would love to get the Versus 13
on
cut.
the topic of what you just said. Apparently, so I I have a friend that was telling me who's like a huge Kingdom Hearts fan also, but he's more than a Kingdom Hearts fan. He's a Nomura fan. So Kingdom Hearts, the person that like directs Kingdom, the like main story guy for Kingdom Hearts is also the guy that was originally doing Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah, it's Nomura.
And apparently, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, if you do all the DLC, there's like a secret cutscene that's shot for shot the same as the original trailer for 13 Verses, but with Yozora instead of Noctis.
Yep.
Apparently, there's something about like, apparently Nomura's really horny for making 13 Verses how he originally wanted to in Kingdom Hearts. That's what I've been told.
My thoughts on that are that is why I don't care about Kingdom Hearts anymore. That and the fact that the story is on a fucking phone game that I'll never.
He's hijacking it.
But dude, I'm just like, just make Final Fantasy 13 Verses. Do not ham-fist it into Kingdom Hearts. It's already super complicated and convoluted. Like Kingdom Hearts already has enough going on. Don't also make it Final Fantasy, please, for the love.
Man, my name's Nomura, and I wanted to make this game somewhere.
But okay, also the reason why I don't really feel sympathy for it is because Nomura also wanted Final Fantasy 15 to be a musical at some point because he saw
what? Did he really?
Yeah, I heard about that.
He saw Les Mis. He was like, "Oh my God, Hugh Jackman!" And he wanted Final Fantasy 15 to be a musical. And Square was like, "No."
It would have been more of an identity than it had.
Hey.
So that's why, like, when it comes to Final Fantasy 15, I'm like, look, there's a good game in there. I'm not gonna give it shit because
I've never heard that before, but that is so perfect. There is a good game in there. It has all the pieces to be a good game. It just somehow dropped the ball. Like I gave you the recipe, but you fucked it up bad.
And I especially knew when it got to the cutscene where spoilers for Final Fantasy 15, where Luna dies, where Luna Freya dies, right? That cutscene choked me up, and I didn't even care about her.
Right?
Yeah, it was a very sad scene.
Well,
because,
I'll say this:
like
I didn't even know she died.
Knocked this as a kid, and he's like, "All I wanted was to save you."
Yeah, okay.
I thought he was punching her.
The music
That's what I thought was
is
happening.
so good in that game.
It is, yeah.
And like her final farewell, and like just the emotion of it, because Noctis is like, all I wanted the entire journey here was to save you, and all I got out of it was this damn ring.
Yeah,
so that was sad. It was a sad moment.
Yeah, Somnus
is so broken. That song is
the music
amazing.
for the game. The music for the game is undeniably great.
Yes.
So.
Yoko Shimomura wrote Somnus, and she released there are multiple like best of Yoko Shimomura compilation albums, right?
Uh-huh.
A bunch of different Yoko Shimomura albums came out in between that trailer and the actual game coming out, and that song was on them. Like that song literally self-sustained itself without a game for like 15 years. And then it's still relevant today. And we still hate the game.
Yoko Shimomura.
It's a great
piece. But it's crazy.
I wanted to say that on the note of Noctis and Final Fantasy Versus 13 and Kingdom Hearts, this is something that I both love and hate about Nomura, because I think Nomura has some of his writing and some of his ideas is like the most interesting shit ever, and it draws you in so hard. But then like some of the final execution leaves you like, you know, wanting more, and like, damn. Like at the end of FF7 Remake, that whole 7 seconds to the end that we keep referencing, like that little thing, it's such a Nomura thing that just gets you horny. And it's just like such a little, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But another thing he does, right, as a lot of people may or may not know, he has like he puts a lot of like emphasis on names and the name of things. And I think Japanese do this a lot. Like I know One Piece does that a lot.
It's a Japanese.
There's a lot of emphasis on names, right? So for instance, like Sora, Riku, and Kairi, like Sora is sky, Riku is earth, Kairi is like wave or sea. And then there's like Terra, Aqua, and Ventus, which like all mean those same things, but in Latin, and it connects them to that. So the thing with Noctis and Yozora is Noctis in Latin, I think, means like night. It means like night or something to that degree, nighttime.
Yeah.
Sora, as you know, means sky, and then Yozora, this new character that people are seeing as a foil for Noctis, his Yozora literally means in Japanese night sky. So like he's supposed to be, he's a pairing of Sora and Noctis, like, and whatever that's going to end up turning out to be in, you know, in the future for Kingdom Hearts. It's just so interesting though, like the fact that his main name means night sky, Noctis means night, and Sora means sky. Like that little shit gets me so fucking horny.
So you just made me think that Final Fantasy 15 is going to be in Kingdom Hearts 4.
Yeah.
Noctis especially.
Final Fantasy 15 is forgotten about. It's a shame because, like I said, there's a cosmology of gods that are the summons. You know, like the summons are used to Ramu, Shiva, Bahamut,
which look phenomenal by the fucking way.
Yeah.
Yo, there were so many people that were mad that Bahamut wasn't a dragon and was like a dragon knight. I was like, that was hype as fuck.
That was
and, like,
hype.
He had that voice that was like the chosen, the ring repletion. I was like, yo, this is like some Game of Thrones shit.
Yes.
But all that said, they're probably all going to be forgotten, which is really sad because there was like a lot of lore in that world.
Yeah, there was. Like you said, there was a good game in there.
Yeah.
I often think about replaying 15. Like I think about it so often because after I played it, they released a ton of stuff to fill in the story. When I've
heard it's a better game now.
That's the version I played, and I still felt like I was watching like a YouTube video titled "Best Scenes from Final Fantasy 15" with like that's all it was.
When I played it was the first week, and of course I just beat it in the first week, and I was like, well, I don't know what I just played. I had a lot of fun with the battle system, being Minato the entire time, but yeah, I don't know what I just played. And then after I was finished, months later, they're like, oh, we released all this DLC that like fills in gaps for all the characters. It gives all of them backstories. Like each one of them had an episode. And then there was also just like, we literally went back and patched the game with scenes that were just not in the version that you played because you had it the first week.
Yeah.
But it's like,
the first
let me tell you,
Kanye album.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes.
Damn. That was dirty.
It's true. Kanye releases albums, and then 6 months later, that same album's a new album.
The Life of Pablo changed every week. Every single week, the Life of Pablo changed.
What happened? But I have a question. If anybody knows, I know when 15 before it came out, there was a demo, and in the demo you played as like Child Noctis. Is that even playable anymore? Like, if I were to go play 15, can I even play like that Child Noctis?
It is only the demo. I thought it was a really clever way to do a demo because you had a summon. The summon is Carbuncle, which I love Carbuncle. I love all of like the underdog summons that are only in like 1 or 2 Final Fantasy games. And Carbuncle is one of those.
Yeah, cast Reflect on everybody. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
Carbuncle's an integrate.
Carbuncle's in Final Fantasy 7 Remake, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's in Remake, but you have to buy. I bought the deluxe edition, and you get Carbuncle that way.
Yeah. But yeah, you can only play as Child Noctis in that demo because like the whole thing is like he's having a dream, and I was like, oh, that's a cool way to do the demo without giving away anything about the game. So but it's also like something that can enrich the tapestry of the game.
The summons in 7 Remake are also really there's only a few of them, but they are fucking phenomenal. Like Ifrit is really cool looking, Shiva always, and you have to fight them through that annoying little cyborg kid, Chadley. Chadley. Cool. And then Bahamut, when you fight Bahamut for the last time, on hard mode, he summons Ifrit. Like
does he?
Yeah, you go through these so there's this item in the game.
Summoning summons, man. What the fuck?
So there's this item in a game called Götterdämmerung, which I believe is German, it sounds like, or something. But there's an item called Götterdämmerung, and you can only get it from doing basically everything in hard mode and fighting this one boss called like something in Peace and Justice or something like that. It's a big robot, but you beat the boss and you get this item. The item makes it where whatever character's equipped with it, at the start of every single battle, their limit break gauge is full immediately.
Oh no.
And during the battle, after they use their limit break, because you're probably going to pop it immediately, it just starts going up continuously. Their limit break just like this. Just going up again.
Oh my god.
So I wonder what they're going to do for FF7 Remake Part 2. Like, are we going to transfer our save data? Or are you going to have everything that you have in
There's
Part 1?
There's no way Götterdämmerung is transferring. I already said that when I got that shit in front of Gary, and I got into a battle and I used Ascension immediately, and then the bar just kept going back up. He was like, no. That's just so then I was like, okay, Ascension is cool and all, but it only hits one character. So I put it on fucking Barret, and I just started every battle off of Catastrophe, which wipes the board. It just kills everything on the fucking board. Because the whole point of every game is to break it. So I was like, all right, this is too much now. Like now I just go through and just solo everything by pressing one button. But I was like, there's no way this carries over. I also don't even know if the materia at max level, because I maxed out all my materia too. I'm like, I don't even know if this will carry over.
I don't know if it would be fun if it transferred over.
That's what I'm thinking. I think what they have to do is, so in the original game, Yuffie steals everyone's materia. She blatantly just this happens multiple times, by the way. She just literally, you'll go to your items, you'll like when you first meet her, you'll go to all your items and they're just gone. Like your materials all gone, your weapons have no material on them. And it's kind of a crazy part in the game. Like you're kind of upset. You have to go to Wutai, which is her hometown, and get your shit back without any of it though. So you're just going through vanilla characters. And I was wondering when Intergrade came out, I said, oh, that's so broken. They're going to use Intergrade as like the bridge between 7 Remake 1 and 7 Remake 2 to have her take all of your broken ass material.
Oh, that's interesting.
And maybe she'll do something to it that makes it where like it no longer is maxed out. Like, oh, I'm giving this all back to you, but I think I messed it up. And like your ice, fire, and thunder are all just at level 1 again. And like because if you just start off with Kyuraga, Thundaga, Firaga, and everything.
Yeah, there's no point.
And that, like you don't have those spells that early in the original game. Like you don't have Thundaga. You could if you just stayed in one spot like Destiny Island and farmed it. But like no one's farming AP that hard in the original Final Fantasy VII just to have Thundaga when you leave Midgar. Like that's a bit ridiculous. So like I don't see us having Thundaga at the start of Remake 2. Like, I feel like they're going to do something. And I thought Yuffie would have been the perfect. Yeah, I thought Yuffie would have been the perfect way.
So the character arc for Yuffie in Intergrade is interesting because it doesn't have to. So she meets the Avalanche that Barrett and them are complaining about all the time. She meets them, and then she goes on like a reconnaissance mission with that branch of Avalanche. But they like pass by Tifa and them during the scene where Barrett is, I think, leaving for the second bomb run or something. And then like she sees them in the distance, and then they're like, oh, those are the extremist Avalanche people. We don't talk to them. And then they move on. And then you never see them again. But then like, or from Yuffie's Yuffie never sees them again. But then like at the end, Yuffie sees the plate falling. Like she also finds out that the plate's about to fall. And then she also tries to do something about it. And then you see her seeing the plate fall.
Oh, that's really cool. So it's a different perspective.
Like, yeah. You see a whole new cutscene for the plate falling. It's an actual cutscene of the plate literally falling from like Yuffie's perspective. And then, like, after that, it shows them walking towards Calm, and I think you can see Calm in the background or something. There's that, like, once... Yeah, you can see Calm in the background. There's, like, a very clipped YouTube scene, like, a very recommended video of YouTube where Tifa teaches Aerith how to, like, hitchhike. All this stuff happens, but it's, like, mostly fluff, but you do see Calm in the background later, and then it starts raining, and there's, like, a thematic thing. But, like...
Man.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
still can't beat Ramu. So in Intergrade, so I haven't even beaten Intergrade because I'm just like,
oh no, yeah, I finally beat it. I was like, I don't know where Yuffie goes from here because like now she knows about the extremist parents of Avalanche and she has sympathy for her. Her story arc is her gaining sympathy for the people of Midgar and not wanting
right, because before, like in the start, she's like, yeah, you're all devil, or you all call us devils and so on and so forth.
Yeah, like I'll just kill you all to get what I want. I don't care. Like like Wutai doesn't care about the people of Midgar at all, but like by the end, like there's another character from Wutai there that cares more about Wutai. Is like all these people could burn for me to get what I want, basically. And then like she like starts to
Part 2, 2022.
I would love it.
That's what I need. I need that.
Oh my god, no. My 2022 is going to be wrapped up by Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. And if Grand Blue Fantasy Relink doesn't come out this year, you'll also hear me scream.
There's a lot coming out this year.
Is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, is that still a mobile game?
No, Relink was never a mobile game. Relink is the Platinum Games.
I just know what Grand Blue is.
Grand Blue Fantasy is a mobile game. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Platinum Games developed a full action RPG with the
that sounds sick.
It is unbelievable. Every trailer has been like, something's got to go wrong because it looks too good. Every single trailer has been like that, and the trailers are like 18-minute gameplay things. It's a freaking. Oh my god,
that sounds cool. I'm gonna look that up.
Let's look it up.
I just want a release date for Remake Part 2.
Me too. It's definitely seeming like, if we're being realistic, next year at the earliest, though.
Yeah, it's definitely not happening this year. You think they're gonna pull like a Nintendo and be like, "Here's a trailer. Also, the game's out now." And
like some Xenoblade 3 shit.
They're not gonna do that. That's a great example. They were like, "Oh, Xenoblade 3," and I was like, "Oh," and they were like, "Now," and I'm like, "Oh."
No. Even crazier. I can't off the top of my head think of any example of this ever happening. Xenoblade 3 got announced for a September release, and then a couple weeks later, they were like, "It's coming out in July," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
like
it's weird.
The date got moved up. Like y'all releasing it sooner?
Yep. Like y'all know that September is not in July, right? Yeah, Nintendo's pretty infamous for that. Like when you see a trailer for a Nintendo IP, you're like, oh, this could come out in 3 years, or it could come out in 3 minutes. I don't really know. I guess.
Relink had one of those too. Relink was announced to release like 2 years ago or something, and it's like changed consoles and it's changed engines and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's when things get scary.
Yeah, and the last time they said like we're on track, but we're not going to give you a release date until nothing could go wrong. So that's what they said. That was the last announcement. Like we're not saying anything else until it's completely done and we're just waiting to ship it.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things happening. I really hope I hope we don't have to wait too long for part 2. I'm just kind of, I don't know. As I get older, right, I have less patience for wanting to wait long for a game. I might die, yo.
Yeah, I
got less patience to wait forever.
It takes so long for everything to come out now, and that's the one thing I don't like about modern games. And I always say it's because of the graphics being so absurd and how long it takes to develop. Like I appreciate the art and the effort that goes into making what Final Fantasy VII Remake looks like. To make it look the way it does, that is not lost on me. I play that shit on a 4K LG OLED TV, and it looks phenomenal. But like the fact that it can take 5 years for it to come out, I don't care for that. And I'll trade a faster turnaround time for less powerful graphics any day of the week.
As someone in the industry, I'm just like, man, give me more time. I'm always like, please give me more time.
Yeah, I'm sure that on you guys' end, like from the side of the creative, you definitely don't want to be rushed, right? Because then bad things happen.
Look, man, I told the stream, now I'm allowed to talk about it. I've been working on the newest season of Stranger Things, and I'm still just like, please more time. I'm like, please more time. Please just give me more time.
Well, there's a release date, homie. Get to work.
I know.
Finish it up.
When does Stranger Things come out?
Get crunched.
Like the end of this month, right?
Yeah,
I know the release date.
The May 29th, I think.
Yeah.
So
it's like there's 2 different seasons for 2 different release dates. So.
Yeah, it comes out in May, and then part 2 comes out in the start of June, I think.
Oh, is this the final season?
I think I don't think they've said it's the final season, but I think it is.
Okay.
The way they're building it up feels like it's the end.
What I'm hoping is that it's the final season for these kids, and then like Stranger Things solidifies itself as like an anthology kind of. Like the next few seasons will be like different kids.
I hope this is it.
Yo, if they go through the 90s,
on a high note.
If they do it 90s kids, I'll watch that shit because that would be our generation.
Like, yeah, like that would be cool. That would be cool if it's like.
Imagine getting to work on that too, because you grew up in the 90s. So that would be fucking sick if they did a version of Stranger Things with new kids that grew up in the 90s. That would be, man.
Well, actually, I think after this, I don't want to work. I'm good. I worked on 1 season of Stranger Things. I'm good.
Before we get out of here, though, let me give a shout out to our patrons over at Patreon. So over this weekend, I went to a Philly regional, and I saw a lot of people who were like, "Yo, I love the podcast," and we just released our hentai episode, and everything like that. And people really, really liked that one, which I'm appreciative of. But we ended up getting a fun episode. It was very fun to record, but we ended up getting like 4 new patrons over the weekend, and I just had no idea. So I sent out links to the Discord server, and if you are a patron and you don't have a link to the Discord server, please message us and I'll be sure to get one to you quickly. But we really appreciate it. We now have 38 people on Patreon, so that is phenomenal. And we drop exclusive episodes every single month for the Patreon that are only accessible via Patreon. And we also just have video versions of the podcast that come up on Patreon as well. So if you don't want to just listen to the audio, if you actually want to see us, like right now, we have a visual of all 4 of us, for this podcast episode. So if that's something that interests you, the Patreon also has that type of content. And there's other perks too that you guys can read up on. Just look up IMNerd podcast on patreon.com. But yeah, for the people who have been rocking with us and who have been supporting us, we really, really appreciate it. So let me just give you guys a shout out. We have Connie, Austin, Leon, Quest, Garen, Xavier, Hylian, TCG Automotive, Silver Chronic, Tyree Tinsley, Dimitri Barnes, Alexander Brissett, Vinny Casello, Game Freak Yoshi, Alex Flamer, Gabe Marini, Andre Reynolds, CJ, Dub K. Dawan, Saul at Dabbers Gaming Cafe, Dan Vrabel, Dennis Milburn, Joseph Marcello, Scott Page, Red Vines, First to Home, Dalis Fernaris, Tom Wadabiki, S. Akuma, Mitchell Naus, Midwest Gaming, William Shapiro, Dimitri Safirdis, Chips, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey, KJ, And last but not least, Doc and Ziggy. Those last 4 are new: Vince, Dallas, KJ, and Doc. Thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast. We really appreciate it. We hope to bring you more amazing content real soon. And yeah, as I always say, do the things that make you happy. This is a really fun episode to record. I've been talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake for a while now. It's pretty much, to me, the best game that came out during the pandemic. I just really, really enjoyed this game. So, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, because I feel like before that it was Final Fantasy 15 and like Kingdom Hearts 3. And I did like Kingdom Hearts 3 a lot more than Final Fantasy 15, but I just didn't expect Square Enix to really come through like they did for this game. So I'm glad that we finally got this episode out. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Aunt Chris, anything you want to say? Good. Shut up.
Oh no! I was just gonna say I chose Aerith over Tifa every time. Leave me alone, Jesus Christ!
Dude, I hope she doesn't. I hope she doesn't die again. Because I remember when I played the original, I was like, "Oh man, she died," and then I was like, "Wait, I was using her." Shit.
That is so. I think I brought this up a long time ago, but I happened to not be using her when I played through the game. So when she died, it wasn't a blow to like me training this character, but yeah, for people who did choose her, it just kind of sucks. It's like, well, that character's literally dead, and that doesn't usually happen in RPGs. But yeah, get fucked.